Now, we were interviewing candidates for position of town manager. So now we'll call to order the agenda review meeting, and we're going to start with candidate interviews. We would like to give the newest member at the table a second to introduce himself, and if he wants to say a word or two.
I'm Michael Taff. I was chosen by you to be the first junior council person at McCandless, and I'm just very excited to be here and to learn about local government.
Thank you so much. We're glad to have you. Okay, it looks like our first person is Russell Lucas, zoning hearing board. Is Russell here? Okay, moving on. Michael McGraw.
Yeah.
Come on up. Right here is the seat.
Thank you.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for coming.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me.
So we have your resume here in front of us. Is there anything in addition to here you'd like to tell us about yourself? And then we'll go around and each ask you a question.
Sure.
Do you have one?
Yeah, just that, first of all, thank you for meeting with me in consideration. Kind of had an interest in the zoning aspect of things. I currently am a real estate lawyer. I deal mostly with title work, but also, through schooling and just through, reading on current events, always have had an interest in the zoning aspect of
Right.
things and looking at a way to kind of utilize my experience to maybe help the community.
Mhm. Yeah, I read through your resume, Michael. You have an excellent background. I haven't seen a resume like that since Bill McKim was involved in trying to interview for a job.
I get, with a nice point, but a little inartfully presented.
Okay.
I think you get that.
Sorry, Bill.
I wasn't sure you were listening.
Do you have any zoning practice at all, or
I'm sorry, I missed you.
do you have any zoning law experience?
No, not in practice. I mean, I took it in law school,
Okay.
land use planning course, which was one of my favorite courses. I liked it. Had a real estate concentration, but not in actual practice. I do mostly with title work in my
Okay.
practice. So
And so, are you familiar with they have the zoning law on the McCandless website? On the ordinances. You just have to pick government and then hit ordinances. What about municipal planning code experience of the state's municipal planning code? Do you have any experience with that? Or?
no, similar to the answer about the zoning
Yeah.
board, just like some educational background and
Right.
knowledge, but not an actual real practice.
Yeah. So really, we'd be looking for. I think that we'll have the three. There's 5 candidates, and the three members of the zoning hearing board will be probably. Greg Krawczyk, he's already on there, and I think we'll get Tom Edwards as he's currently an alternate. And Russell Lucas, who was supposed to interview first, he should be going from an alternate to the full member because we actually changed the date of the meeting from Thursday, which normally the Thursday, fourth Thursday of the month, to Wednesday, and so you would be interviewing for an alternate position.
Okay.
Okay.
But we haven't decided if we're moving that person
Yeah,
up
but
from alternate.
yeah.
So that may not be the case, right? We haven't decided that.
No, we haven't decided.
I mean, we might choose him and keep the alternate as the alternate. You're making a lot of conclusions here.
So you would prefer to keep Russell Lucas?
No, I'm just saying the decision has not been made.
No, it hasn't.
Okay.
So we're, okay. But I don't have any further questions.
Thanks.
So I guess what made you interested to apply?
I have a strong interest in, I've been in McCandless now for 11 years and was looking for a way to get involved. And I think the kind of a neat way to get involved is to mix what is an interest of mine, which is real estate zoning, these type of things that impact our community, with my educational background. And so I thought that it would be a good opportunity to kind of mix something that I'm interested in with also helping the community.
Great, thank you.
Michael, we've been talking a lot about community outreach here tonight. I'm wondering, how did you learn about these positions?
In the paper, the local Midnight Journal.
So it was the journal that caught your eye?
Yes, it was, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I have no other questions, though. Thank you.
thank you.
Since you're not familiar, as you said, with zoning or planning, how would you become familiar with the regulations that you need to know?
Yeah, I mean, just the same way that I kind of went through schooling, undergraduate, but then law school as well. So while I might not have the actual practical experience, I do have the educational background and the terms. I'm very familiar with how to learn them in school. And I also, while I don't have, again, the practical experience in law school, I did write my whole law review article on a zoning issue. Specific to an interest of mine, baseball, but specific to the movie The Field of Dreams, the actual property itself, as they tried to kind of transfer that and form it in more of a commercial aspect. And so I spent basically a whole year writing and researching on zoning. So again, don't have the actual practical experience, but I am familiar with the law. Familiar with how to research it, and then just apply that to what would best suit the current situation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
What is the principal motivation that caused you to think about the zoning specifically? And you talked about it, but because there's a lot of other opportunities for a person with your background that you could have done.
Yeah, I think it's just it's something that when I was when I went to law school, I took a real estate concentration. So you get to take all sorts of courses that involve real estate. And one of the courses that I enjoyed the most, if not the most, was land use planning course, which was taught by Judge James, who deals with I know some appeals issues that come along with zoning throughout the whole county. And just got a really great understanding for things, and just it piqued my interest. And again, I thought maybe that would be something that in practice that I would do, but it hasn't, as my career kind of has unfolded at this point, it hasn't happened. So I thought it'd be a great idea to mix that, previous kind of kindling of my interest with something that would help the community.
I understand, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't normally ask questions, but you still live in McKinney? Because the address, I didn't recognize Manville. I'm like, I don't know where that is.
It says where it
I didn't
says.
recognize it, so I looked it up,
It's back in my.
and it says that you didn't know that you just sold the house.
I did, yeah. So when I'm still in McCandless, so it just this is I guess the old address, but 370 Wagon Wheel Trail, which is actually
Okay.
even closer. So yeah,
Yeah, I was just like, well, he doesn't live there anymore.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
just wanted to make sure you didn't move into Ross,
So
or
what ward is he in then?
Yes.
and he would be in Jerry's in Pillsbury.
Okay, yours
Two.
then.
Okay, so it'd be two.
Okay. Okay, I have no questions
Sorry,
there.
Bill. I didn't mean to
Thank
call
you.
you
Thank you
Jerry.
so much.
Thank you for applying.
I appreciate it very much. Appreciate time and consideration.
Thank you for coming.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks
Pleasure. Thank you.
Williams Lamar.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you so
coming
much.
in.
I appreciate it.
Lamar Williams.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Lamar Williams.
Is it
His
Lamar
first name
Williams?
Lamar, yeah.
Sorry,
Yep. Undergrad and law school.
Right, me
Thank you
too.
so much. Appreciate
I
it.
guess that would be right. Hi, nice to see you again. Sorry. Okay, sorry I've got stuff everywhere.
No, that's okay.
Like I said before, we have your resume here. Is there something that you would like to, add, or we can go to our questions? What would you-
As most of you know, I've been on the planning commission now for 2 years. This is my interview to kind of get re-upped. I think, because I haven't had a full term, I think that it's incumbent upon me to serve the community even more by fulfilling a full term with the commission. I have a good rapport with my fellow commissioners on the planning committee, and I really enjoy the work that we do, and I think we've made great strides over the last 2 years to try and craft and make sure that everything that goes into the community is something that is safe, that is keeping the community in mind, and is making sure that each thing that we do change within the community is something that's done on a thoughtfully, and we're not just rubber stamping developers' moves. We're making sure that they're doing everything that they're supposed to be doing according to our code. I can continue that work, and I hope to be part of the team as well. Questions?
Lamar, you are currently on the planning commission and have some excellent ideas and present them very well. I mean, you're very articulate and you have some good ideas. But you had some trouble getting to meetings. Do you think that'll improve?
Yes, I did. So we had a couple issues with my family, and those have taken their natural course that they've resolved. So yeah, I'll be at every meeting.
Okay, great. Okay.
I don't have any questions.
No questions, Lamar.
What is your feeling about development in McCandless?
I look at the long term when it comes to development. Every time I see a presentation made by a developer, once we put them through their paces to make sure everything's, lit properly, that their paperwork is in, that it's of quality, that it's accurate, that it's going into the place it's supposed to go. I always ask the question to myself, and I ask questions of the developers: what's this gonna look like in 10 years, in 15 years? How's it gonna serve the community? If there are lots next to or around that place, the place that they are developing, how's it gonna organically fit into McCandless Township? I've a vested interest. I've been here for 12 years. I've raised my family here. My kids go to school here. I want to make sure that, when my kids inherit my house or whatever, there's this community is still gonna be of quality, and that however small my contribution might have been, that I've asked the right questions at the time that it was appropriate to do so, and not go, maybe if I had asked that question, it may have moved this out a few feet, made it a lot better, or just in some small way, I can make sure that in the future, they thought about things. Enough questions to go, you know what, maybe I can, while it's still a pencil line and not a building, right? So that's my opportunity to get in there and say, okay, I can improve the quality of my neighborhood in that small way while it's still in pencil, while it's still in pen, or while it's still being thought of. Maybe move it here, maybe not do this, maybe move it, think about the senior center next to it, or think about the gym up the street. How would that person's commute work going from here to there? Oh, you're a parent, or, put different hats on and say, if you put this here, how's it gonna impact everything? And in 15 years, what's it gonna look like? What's the plan for maintenance? If you drop this here, you're gonna drop it here, make your money, and then leave. We're still stuck with it after that. That's the kind of lens that I look through whenever I look at any proposal by a developer.
Good thoughts, thank you.
Lamar, good to see you again. You recall I was on that committee for a period when you first came on, I guess. What are your thoughts about the methodology that the planning commission uses to evaluate projects? Do you have any thoughts on that? So,
the main things that we look at are, of course, safety, viability of the structures, the methodology, and we're led by the wonderful Bruce Betty. He's got everything down, and we definitely have all of the ordinances top of mind. That's usually done ahead of what we end up doing. We're looking at this thing primarily for viability, for accountability, and making sure the developer really thought through what they were doing to make it a quality project. That they have all their paperwork ticked and tied. We're looking at things like, in the event of emergency, a couple different scenarios you want. Are the fire trucks gonna be able to get in and out? How far away are you from our normal ordinances and zones? If you've made any variances, are they things that you've really considered in the long term? I think our process is sound. I think we get through a lot of the things that the developers are, and they've come to expect, us to really sit there and look at it. We're not just a rubber stamp committee. We focus on everything that they bring before us and look at it with a critical eye. And we have some specialists in our team that really looks at things from an engineering standpoint, from a community, supporting standpoint, and from an area of, okay, we want to make sure that McCandless is the best it can be based upon what a developer wants to design. And our process is sound. They don't get out of here without going through a rigorous process of looking at their proposal and making sure that before we advance it to the town council, you know, the town council is getting quality out of what the developer's gonna present, and we bounce them back and say, you're gonna need to do a little bit more work on this, and come back with something that makes more sense.
Thank you, Lamar.
I don't have any questions.
I don't think I do either. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see
Okay. Amy?
Thank you.
Hi.
Wearspan? Is that right? Wearspan?
First one on post one. That's all right. That's enough.
So, just the same thing. We have your resume here. Is there anything additionally that you'd like to tell us?
Well, I have been in human resources for over 20 years, and my husband is on the planning commission currently. And so I saw how he could make an impact to our local community, and I thought, I could make an impact too. I know human resources, so that could be an area where I could contribute. I'm very involved in the organization Pittsburgh Cares, which is a nonprofit that connects potential volunteers to other nonprofits. So it's sort of a matching service. And they're primarily downtown Pittsburgh and the various boroughs. They don't serve the suburbs, but that's a great cause. I love doing that. I'm president of the board of that now. But I also was looking for something to do that would be more impacting my local community, you know, where I live and where my kids go to school and that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, Amy, do you have I did notice that from your resume, that you have a lot of experience in human resources. But do you ever interview anyone or ever interview the candidates or anything like that?
Yes, all the time,
Okay.
almost weekly,
Oh, really?
yes.
Okay. Okay. I don't have any further questions.
Any questions?
Amy, I'd like to know where you learned about the opportunity here.
I believe I saw it in the town newsletter.
A crier.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Kind of
and
a
I-
survey question I'm asking tonight.
Yeah,
Great.
Are you familiar with many people in the town?
I'd say I am. You know, I work downtown, but I live here. My kids go to school here. We're very connected with our neighbors, and I've met many people through my husband and his work on the planning commission. So, yeah, I think
You've
so.
lived here how long?
We've lived in McCandless for 15 years.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Amy, if you are selected for the, and it's a personnel position, it's the one you'd be most interested in, that's what your
Only
resume says.
interested.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. What do you hope to achieve from that? I mean, in terms of your development and your educational development?
You know, I've never been involved with any sort of government kind of a role, so I think that would be interesting to learn more about the local government and how that works. And I've been in corporate positions. I was in academic positions when I first started out. I went to Cornell and then I worked for Cornell for a while. And then, of course, I'm involved in the nonprofit with Pittsburgh Cares, but I've never really seen the government side of things and how that works. So I think that would be interesting to see that, and that could certainly help me in work and maybe also in my board position.
Thank you.
I have no questions?
Fantastic resume.
Just one other question. I mean, Steve is on the planning commission now, but he says he's volunteer fire department work is taking up a lot of time.
That's true.
Okay.
He became a lieutenant recently. He was previously on the leadership team captain, I can't remember what he was before, and then he wasn't for a while, and now he's a lieutenant again, so they expect him to be at more calls and more trainings, and he travels quite a bit for work as well, so it's tough to.
Right. We just did the get-go thing and he had some great ideas, yeah, so, just tell him that.
Okay, I will.
Thank you so much.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
Warehouse.
Thank you.
Where's
Seaman? Pat?
Hi, yes.
Front and center, come on.
Hi, good evening, I'm Pat Seaman, I'm
Wait,
applying.
sit up.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna sit you right here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we got a whole routine how we do this.
Oh,
You get to
okay,
sit right here,
okay.
and then we have your resume, but you get to tell us maybe if there's anything additional that you want us to know, and then we go around and we ask you questions.
Okay.
Okay?
First of all, I want to say, thank you very much for your confidence in, working on the sanitary authority for the last 5 years. It's been, extremely rewarding, plus it's, and also in education. The last 5 years has been very significant what's going on. You know, with a lot of the cost that's going up and a lot of new regulations from the EPA. You know, for example, as a cost-cutting savings, we were able to refinance a loan and save over $500,000 for the life of our debt service, which is about $8 million. So, and that is because the health of the authority has a AA bond rating, which means we can get our bond rate loans down, which is phenomenal. There's not a lot of authorities that can do that. So that's very good for what we have. We've also looked in programs of, I'm not sure how you're familiar with that, with the natural gas. There's some grants from the state that we're able to convert from fuel, from gasoline to natural gas, which is also a cost savings. Plus, it's all local here too. So we started institutional programs that way. So we have, I think we have 6 trucks right now that are dual fuel, primarily with natural gas that also can be done with regular gasoline. So that's a big plus too. Plus on the maintenance side, maintenance is a big thing. I'm not sure how familiar with that, but with our industry, it's very capital intensive because you got to keep the maintenance going. Otherwise, you'll have like what Alcosan's going through. So what we're doing, we're very proactive in our maintenance of our mainline and our upkeep of our pipes, because if you have pipes, water that comes in, you have also water goes out, which is not good.
Right.
So we've applied with Alcosan, worked with them, and we were able to get their Grow Greener grant, able to, one of our projects with the Grow Green, able to take 100,000 gallons of water out of their system, and which we were able to get about 85, which is 85%, which is closely to $85,000 that they paid us to help maintain the lines.
Is there anything you want to tell us about yourself?
Oh,
I think he just gave Bill's whole report today on
Oh,
MTSA,
I'm sorry.
but that's okay. Okay.
Bill, you can go home now.
Yeah, that's it. We're
I'm
done.
sorry,
We're done.
that's what we've been working on, which is very exciting because
Could you
of.
just show a little enthusiasm, please?
That's-
Seem like
you
you're
know,
there at all.
I've been living in McCandless since 1980, moved out here, and I really liked the school district and the township, and when I was married, when I
And
got married,
sewers.
and, say again?
And you love sewers.
I love sewers. You know what? There is more to sewers than most people think.
So we're learning.
Yes, it's a phenomenal industry.
Yeah.
You know. So anyway, I really like the township, and part of part of what I do is service, you know, being in the military, I work with the church, and I want to keep our township as one of the greatest places to live, which we all know, and what would be a part of that is helping being on a board of sanitary authority or something else within the community. So, as you can see with my resume, I have, I've worked with finance, I've done, work with heavy industry, with building schedules, building timelines, working with all kinds of customers. So, I'm really excited to be a part of this, and I'm hoping I can, you know, get reappointed again for another 5 years.
Yeah, yeah, that was my question. You're currently a board member, and is this your second term? Or?
Yes, this would be my second
Okay.
term, yes, sir.
Yeah, you have heavy credentials. I mean, it's great. I think apparently you're doing a great job, so.
So I appreciate that, and every decision I look at, I also, how does it affect me? Since I'm also a ratepayer, every decision we make also affects what I do. So there's some motivation into doing that too, because I'm also a ratepayer. So what we do is, how does that also affect me? And I look at every decision that way. How does it affect me? How does it affect the rest of the community too? So I have skin in the game on what we do, on how we keep our authority going.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I don't have a question.
No.
I don't have any questions, I'll just make a quick comment.
Right.
What a diligent board member, I've witnessed you, and you're now serving as the treasurer, which is appreciated. I think, you didn't have a chance to make the point, but I will say this, Patrick brings a lot of control skill. We are working very hard to automate a lot of our processes to make them more foolproof, eliminate human error. So much of what he brings from his organization, his expertise. I see him every day working with the guys at the meetings, and big help.
Right, but yeah, just to add on that, part of my, I work for a company called Ensemble Signal, which you probably all know is Union Switch and Signal, which is now owned by Hitachi, corporate buyouts. We do train controls, and part of what I do is automated train controls, and a lot of systems I work are on automatic trains where they don't have no driver. So it's completely automated to go from point A to point B without a driver. And so we can apply a lot of that to all kinds of plants, pipe systems. So that's part of the other part I bring too.
No further questions.
Patrick, all I will say is I've been on other committees with you, and I appreciate your positive attitude and your enthusiasm,
Oh.
thank you.
Thank you, yeah, it's, one of the reasons why I moved back here was because from Richland Township, where my wife had a townhouse, was because of the area, North Park, and the school district. And so
Well, we're
it's,
glad to have you
yeah,
back.
and my kids graduated North Allegheny, so so they're a second generation NA grad, so it's wonderful to be a part of this township.
Bill?
Pat, I was generally familiar with your resume from our previous relationships,
Mhm.
and, but I've always been impressed with this, your foreign service, including, I can't pronounce some of this, but Ankara, Turkey.
Oh, Anchor, Turkey, yeah.
Ankara, Turkey.
Yeah,
And
the
China.
company's not gonna let me go, the company's not gonna send somebody unless they, you know the product, you can deal with all kinds of people, and foreign nationals, and also finances too. Are they gonna trust you with the corporate finances? So that's, I actually started in the military when I was in Iraq. I was part of the military transition team. I had 9 guys living in Fallujah, Iraq, around 200 Iraqis that can outgun us anytime. So you learn to become a diplomat real quick.
Thanks, Pat.
So, yes, and so, like I said, the company's not gonna, are not gonna trust you to go somewhere, like I said, unless you know, and you could deal with a lot of locals and with a lot of different cultures that way too. So that was another wonderful experience.
Thank you, I have no further questions.
I have no questions.
Okay.
I don't have any questions either, thank
Oh,
you so much.
oh,
Thank you
okay.
for your service.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. I do appreciate your time. Yes. Good to see you. And for you too, glad to see you. Yes.
James?
Yes.
Yeah, we got Amy.
We'll do
Amy
that.
here.
Nice to meet you.
Why is the internet down again?
James, I just checked Marie's voicemail and email to see if there was anything, because Marie's off today.
James,
Did Amy go?
Well, we interviewed.
Yeah, so
We
far,
interviewed her
right,
already.
we interviewed
I'm
Amy.
where
sorry.
you been?
We did not,
I was trying to
Lucas
find out
Russell
where
was,
Russell and
Lucas-
James,
or Russell Lucas was not here.
Russell, Lucas,
Oh, no,
No.
there's a gentleman sitting out there.
hang on, just, thank you. Thank you.
No, he didn't
I'm
see it
catching up to
being.
the activity. I was in the second quarter, these guys are already in third quarter.
So James Fazio would be next, assuming.
Marie, I have to apologize, but our firm just got a new client.
No, it's not James.
This is an email from,
Okay.
there's
no James
actor from those things.
All right, all right,
So,
all right, all
Angela
right, all
Woods?
right, just
Wait a
wait a
second.
second, Toby's trying to read a letter.
Okay, I got an email, I checked Marie, I got into Marie's emails and with her help and also her voicemail. Marie, I have to apologize, but our firm just got a new client who has a public meeting scheduled for tonight. I found out I have to cover this meeting and I won't be able to make the interview tonight. Please send my regrets to town council that I apologize for the inconvenience. I'm certainly interested in the ZHB position, but unless there is another night of interviews, I'll just have to have them consider me on my past interview and my experience as an alternate.
That's Russell.
That's from Russell, and on the voicemail, James Fazio has had a close family friend died. He is scrambling to have folks stay at his house, and he said he regrets that he couldn't make it tonight either.
So then Angela Woods would be next.
There
well,
you go.
let's see, what are we going to do about Russell? So should we just give him a chance to interview, or, he's definitely a plus. I mean, we actually moved the date from Thursday, when the zoning hearing board normally meets, to Wednesday. And just because he couldn't make Thursdays. And so, I've seen him in action, he really does a great
So
job.
he basically wants to be reappointed.
Yeah, he wants, well, not only, he was an alternative,
Oh,
you know,
okay,
alternate.
to move up.
He was an alternate, and he wants to be a full member. And right now, they don't have an attorney, they won't have an attorney if he's not on there. There won't be an attorney on the board.
Well, you'll be making the nominations for those committees, so you can nominate him if you.
Without an interview?
He's interviewed before.
Oh, yeah, he's
Yes.
interviewed.
Yeah, he's in, all these people had an option to re-interview or to not re-interview.
Oh, okay.
So that doesn't mean he's excluded just because he couldn't make the interview.
Okay, so
You
you're
know,
saying,
Yeah,
it's
you can
based
still
on my
nominate
nomination?
him, yeah,
Well,
because he's been
Bill, this is
interviewed
Russell
before.
Lucas.
okay.
This is
And
Russell
if all these people
Yes,
who've
Russell, yeah.
reapplied, like on previous boards, they had the option to not interview again if they didn't want to, and we could just go on the resume what we remembered from them.
Okay,
So I think that's okay.
yeah,
It's true of Mr. Fazio as well, then, I think.
for me.
It's true of Mr. Fazio.
He is not, he's new to you.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
he's
not
leaving.
interviewed.
He's never been interviewed before?
His last comment on the voicemail was that I would understand, he said that if there's not another opportunity to interview, I'll wait for another opportunity.
Okay, well, we can hold his resume.
So that'd be your call, so the point would be, and his was for the personnel board. So if you don't have a worthy candidate, his point was that he would be willing to hold and be considered another time.
Well, Amy's
We got a lot of good candidates. Angela
although he was a
Woods?
good candidate too.
She's not here yet, but 15 minutes early too.
Okay, David?
We can pretty much.
Marcia,
Nope.
Present.
come on up,
Oh.
Marcia.
We're jumping down clear to 9:10?
Yep, we are, because nobody else is here.
Well, there was one other gentleman here.
Oh, I didn't see him, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good
Who are
evening.
you?
I'm Dan Porter.
Okay.
all right, let's see where you are, Dan.
Hey.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
He's at
Dave
8:40.
Cordham.
Oh,
8:40.
8:40. Yeah,
You
oh,
said
and I was
Dan.
8:50.
He said Dan, it's David on here. Is it Dan or David? What's your
It's
first name,
David.
sir?
Dan.
It's
Yes.
Daniel, it's a typo.
Okay, it's a typo, that's the reason you didn't hear me call your name.
Oh, sorry.
Well, that's because it wasn't your name.
Do you-
You're fine.
All right.
We'll do him
Hi,
next.
Marcia.
Hi,
We'll
how
do
you
him
doing
next.
this evening?
I'm all right.
Okay,
Good.
sorry, sir. All right, Marcia, we've got your resume here. We have interviewed
Yes.
you before, so
Yes.
what can you update us on about you, remind us about you?
My career has been in healthcare finance and compliance, and I am applying for a position on the ambulance authority. And this past summer, I celebrated being a 25-year resident of Canlis. So, semi-retired now, and as I said before, I just want the opportunity to give back.
Okay, great.
Marcy, you have 40 years' experience in healthcare. In McCandless Franklin Park, in healthcare finance.
Yes.
And McCandless Franklin Park Ambulance Authority currently is headed towards some financial troubles. Do you have any thoughts on how they could handle it?
I've had the opportunity to have a discussion with Councilman Kirk on election day. We were talking about this, and I was actually trying to see if I could find financial reports, and I couldn't. I don't know if they're online but anyway, but I wanted to try to take a look, and unfortunately I couldn't. I did get some information, just having a discussion with Councilman Kirk. I just from what I know, there's a couple things that need to be looked in. If they may have already been looked in, I'm not quite sure. You know, how they're reimbursed for the trips.
Right.
And, a lot of insurers now send the checks to
Directly
the
to-
subscribers, not to the ambulance authority directly.
So that would seem to be someone, I guess it's out of line or out of.
Well, the reason why that's done is because there's probably not direct contracts with the ambulance
Yeah,
authority
right.
with those
That's what I mean.
insurers,
That's what I mean.
and so they can't do that. If there is a possibility of becoming affiliated with specific insurance plans,
Mm-hmm.
your reimbursement most likely would be lessened then. So you have to play, the bird in the hand is worth
Yeah,
doing the bush kind of thing. Would we
Right.
get more money if we accepted assignment from some of those payers, if they would be willing to negotiate? They may not
Yeah.
want to have to deal with a number of different ambulance authorities throughout even the greater Pittsburgh area.
Yeah, the word I was looking for was out of network. So, yeah, so
Yeah.
there's.
Yeah,
okay.
and so you need to take a look at that. Is it time for a capital campaign? And I don't know that. Is it time to review the subscriber, how many subscriptions are there? Or is it something that we don't advertise enough? Is it something that we can expand on? Do we need to increase the price of the subscription? The users that are, and I know just from my work in compliance and auditing, you have a lot of, I don't want to say repeat offenders, that sounds bad, but a lot of people who are always using the system and getting the checks and not necessarily sending them to you. So there's things that need, if they have not already been looked at, something that you can try to take a look at. Are the other, townships, we have basically northern regional ambulance authority is what we have right now with Pine and Marshall and Bradford Woods and Franklin, Frank Park and McCandless. And it's just Franklin Park and McCandless, people who are represented on those boards through the bylaws. Is it worth taking a look and making sure that those other communities, if we can allow them in on the authority, they have a better vested interest? How are they promoting the ambulance authority with respect to subscriptions and things like that? Donations, are they active participants with trying to make this a viable ambulance authority?
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. So we have you down as the EAC. Are you applying for 2 positions or just the one?
I had applied for the EAC last time it was open.
Okay, so that's an old.
That was an
Okay.
old one, yeah.
Okay, no other questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
That was a great answer, Marcia.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the prep. We had a really nice long conversation.
You're on it.
Marcia, you gave us a lot of good suggestions, but what would be your strongest suggestion? I'm trying to correct this, because, you know, we've been trying to work on this for a while now.
Right, and without having the opportunity of really seeing the financials, the first thing I think I'd want to see is, where are our subscriptions coming from? Is it primarily Franklin Park and McCandless, because that's where we started? What is the relationship of all the other communities? You know, do they feel as if they have a vested interest within the ambulance authority? And if we don't have a whole lot of subscriptions that way, what can we do to involve them? Income, a steady stream of income is always, so if we can get many subscriptions, and if we can increase the number of subscriptions, and you get that on an annual basis, that would be a big help.
The safest.
The safest, yeah. But I don't have privy right now to the financials, so I don't know of,
Right. Okay,
you
well,
know.
that's good, that was a good answer, thank you.
Transparency is important. You brought that up.
We're
I'm
just
glad.
looking for any and
Sure.
all ideas.
It's very
Thank
good.
you. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Marcia, you're, if I understand you correctly, I've read your resume carefully. You've got tremendous background in this general area, but you're making the statement, which I think is a fair statement to make, that until you can get a chance to look at the books and really get involved in operation, it's hard to really evaluate what specific steps can be done to taken to improve theirs. It's something I think does have to be done, because their finances are getting weaker and weaker every year.
Yes, and that's a shame, because it's such a good service, and it's such it's a need in the community. And we just need everybody to make sure that they understand the need there. And I'm not sure what kind of condition the buses are in, and do we need a capital campaign? You know, is that something that needs to be looked at?
Thank you for your answers.
Sure.
Any questions?
I don't either. Thank you so much for applying.
Thank you, as always, thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Looks like we may have Angela in now.
Okay, Angela Woods,
Oh, much better. Thanks.
right up here.
Who's this? Marcia, good seeing you.
Let me find her. Okay, hi. So the way we do this is, we have your resumes. Make sure this is one of the ones that we have. Yes, we have your resume. If there's anything additional you'd like to tell us, and, we'll go on with questions.
Let's see, there's a couple of little short jobs I didn't include on my resume that I held.
Excuse me, could you speak a little
Yeah,
louder,
absolutely,
please?
I apologize. So there's a couple of small jobs that I've held that are in addition to what's on my resume. One was in Grove City. I was the volunteer coordinator for the United Way there. So I have some experience in getting groups of people activated to do jobs, which I understand is part of this position. I also worked for a short time at Sheno here in, I guess it's Marshall. But again, very short. I don't think they were quite worth putting on a resume. At any rate, we're relatively new to McCandless. I think we're coming in our third year here. We moved here because we like the walkability of where we're at. And I've got 4 kids. I've got a vested interest in trying to help out and improve the community.
Good, thank you, great.
Yes, Angela, I see you majored in agricultural and biological engineering degree. You have a biological and engineering degree from Penn State. And you have great work experience. What role do you see you having with the Environmental Advisory Committee?
I'm afraid I'm not completely familiar with exactly what the committee consists of. So I'm afraid I won't be able to answer that very
I'm not that familiar with it.
intelligently.
I don't get involved in environmental, so I'm not really, I could not really give you another question, so I'll pass it.
Do you have any ideas or goals or anything you would like to achieve on the EAC?
The only thing I'm familiar with what they've done so far is the cleanup day. I think that's lovely. I'd like to see some stuff that helps encourage walking in the community. I think that's a big part. If you're not in a car, you know, you can help out in the environment some. And I'd like to see more public places recycled too in McCandless.
Thank
What was it last?
Public places recycle.
Yeah.
Oh, so you mean recycle plastics and stuff like that?
In addition to having a trash can, having
Oh,
a
okay.
recycle
Okay, thanks.
option.
That was one of my things when I was on the board. So I
still working
understand.
on it.
Yeah, we're still working on it.
Angela, can you tell me how you learned about this opportunity?
I saw it advertised in the North Journal.
North Journal, okay, all right. Do you have any experience with trails, with trail development?
I do not.
Okay. We're excited about that on the EAC, and that is a walkability issue, so I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
As I'm sure you're aware, the EAC has gone out into the community for cleanup days and that. Would you and your children be willing to get involved in that and do that?
Oh, absolutely.
Be part of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Angela, in your resume, you mentioned that you ran pilot scale plant for a plant-based pharmaceutical. What was that? Can you tell me a little more about that, please?
I don't know if I can. It was like under lock and key when I was there, and it's been a while. But I'm not sure that it's something I can discuss. I can tell you about it was a small facility. We were
I
trying
mean,
to.
it's kind of secret, is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Okay,
it was. Yeah,
That's right.
It was a,
We wouldn't want them coming.
yeah,
try to
it's
arrest
been a
you or
long
something.
time, but I really don't know where it stands at this
Anybody's
point.
shooter.
But it was just a small, scaled down plant that we were trying to see if we could get the results we wanted, and then it would be scaled up to size.
Okay, thank you.
I have no questions.
Angela, have you done any project managing? Like in the EAC, we'll each take a project and that will be the person who kind of heads that project up and kind of gets it moving and gets it going. Have you done any kind of project
Not in
managing at all?
a corporate setting, but I've done several church events where I've been in charge. The largest one that I undertook was several years ago. Gosh, it's almost 10 now. A close friend of ours passed away, and their family was left with a lot of medical debt, and we organized a huge fundraiser at 2 locations and raised over $15,000 for the family. So, but I was ordering the food and overseeing all that kind of stuff. So it was
Would you be comfortable taking a role like that?
Oh,
for a
absolutely.
project?
Yeah.
You wouldn't be thrown into something that you had no idea what you were doing, but
I've,
maybe do a little self-education.
Absolutely. I'm confident I can pick up on what I need to pick up.
Okay, okay, all right. There are no questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks for your
you.
time. Thank you.
Okay, Dan. Dan, who was David? Sorry, Dan. All right, Dan, let's find you. Okay, so you were
I hope my
here.
resume says Dan.
It
does.
Yes.
It says Sally, but we're okay with that.
Made mistakes, but that would be a whopper.
And the
All right.
transportation error to the list.
That's right, all right. I'm gonna wanna call you the wrong name forever now. Okay, all right. So we have your resume here. Is there anything in addition you'd like to tell us?
Well, if you just want some background, I can give you a little of that.
Okay.
Originally grew up in the Midwest, St. Louis, and went to school and law school there. And then I moved down to Texas, and I've been in the oil and gas business virtually my entire career. And so went down to Texas, lived in Houston, which was the epicenter of the business at that time. We can now say that Pittsburgh is kind of the epicenter of some of the natural gas. But and then 31 years ago, I moved up to Pennsylvania, into McCandless, where I now live. And so I've been here a long time, and I've enjoyed the time that I've been here. I think McCandless is a great community. And I really think that it's got the potential to stay that way. And part of the reason I wanted to get involved in the planning commission is because I think that's how you keep a community pretty good, is by doing the right planning and doing it up front. Don't letting it slide away from you. So that was my intent for trying to get on the planning commission. I've got 2 daughters, they're both grown now and moved away, so my wife and I still live here.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, you're an attorney with an MBA. You work for Dominion Resources.
Yes.
And you, according to your resume, you were responsible for business development activities in Pennsylvania and West Virginia. But did that entail going before any local planning commissions?
Not at that time. I've been before in my early career when I first came here and went to work for Equitable. Back then it was Equitable Gas, just the local distribution company for the area. And I would go before FERC, that was the regulatory agency in DC. And we had various rate cases and other proceedings before them. But that's the last time I've been before any regulatory bodies.
Are you familiar with our zoning code? It's on the website, and I just want to know if you're
I
familiar.
certainly have not read it, no.
Okay,
Nor had any reason to get into it, to be honest with you.
okay, thank you.
What would be your greatest asset that you bring to this position?
Oh, I don't know, maybe sound judgment, if that's not too broad, but also just a wealth of experience. I mean, I've been in business, I'm retired now, by the way, but I've been in business for 40 years, and in a lot of capacities, in a lot of responsibility, from general counsel of a company to vice president of operations for Equitable Gas and all of their operations and hundreds of people in multiple departments. So that organizational skill and just broad breadth of experience, I think, could be put to use, at least I hope so. And then the other thing would be, as an attorney, you can help out in whatever negotiations that might be taking place, especially if you're doing some planning. You're obviously going to be dealing with and working with contractors, developers, and I assume a number of contracts get involved in that. And I've negotiated hundreds and hundreds, probably can't count enough how many I've negotiated in various capacities. So I think that would be a strength.
Great experience, 31-year resident. Can you tell me, Dan, what you think the biggest planning challenge is for McCandless going forward since you're interested in the planning commission?
I think maintaining the mix and the feel that currently exists in McCandless. I think that we have to avoid going after commercial development almost at any cost, if that is even anybody's idea. I don't think it's a way to go. And I think if we do go that way, I think it has to be done smartly and correctly. I would have to say I'm not a big fan of McCandless Crossing, and I would like to see future development with a little more, I don't know, neighborhood feel or ambiance or something that says McCandless other than big boxes on an asphalt parking lot. And I was disappointed in that, frankly. I think it's a great amenity for the community, but so I would like to get and contribute to a mix that exists, that I think exists throughout McCandless and continue that.
Thanks, very insightful.
To follow through on what you just said, a mix of what?
A mix of strong residential, some commercial, you've got to get it, you know, the tax base is
Right,
undeniable.
that's what, when you said you were avoid commercial development.
Oh,
that's
no,
what-
no, you can't avoid it, but you can also do it in a way that enhances the community both aesthetically and other ways, rather than just let it develop at almost any cost and, you know, in an unfettered fashion. I know there are other areas that want to be developed, the area down near the cinemas along Glacier Drive and all of that, and there might be more that I'm not even aware of, but I think that, you know, we can do that in a way that really adds and says McCandless and says community and says a place that people want to live, not just come to and shop.
Okay, thank you.
I have no questions. Thank you very much, Dan.
Any questions?
You worked with oil and gas for a long time. What's your opinion about fracking in the park or in McCandless?
Well, boy, I could go on for about an hour and a half on that, and I know we don't have time, but fracking is not a problem. We've been doing fracking in the industry for 60, 70 years. What is new is the horizontal drilling that has opened up the shales, and that has led people to be more aware of the fracking that goes on to break open the shales and the other sandstones to get to the gas. Fracking is not dangerous. What is dangerous and what has to be controlled is the water management and the fluid management that comes back out of the hole. I'm not against it if it is done correctly and strictly monitored. There are good operators and there are bad operators, and I could maybe bring some guidance as to who is good and who is bad in the industry. I've been at it for a long time. But I'm not against it.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate your time.
Sure enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. How are you?
How you doing?
Good. Thank you.
Mark's here.
I know.
Sullivan.
Mark Sullivan.
Just on the internet, on your website.
Perfect, thanks.
Up here, Mark Sullivan. So we have your resume here. So if there's anything additional that you'd like to tell us, that would be great, couple minutes, and then we'll go around the table and ask questions.
Well, good, thanks, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk with Town Council. As you heard, my name is Mark Sullivan. I've been a resident of McCandless for 13 years. My wife and I live on Groves Road. What interested me in the position on the McCandless Industrial Development Authority was the opportunity to get involved in supporting and helping and getting involved in local government activities while leveraging my my career, my financial knowledge from my banking career. So I've worked in the finance and banking industry for a little over 35 years. I'm currently employed at First National Bank of Pennsylvania. So for those who don't spend a lot of time looking at bank signs, it's the one that has the red, white, and blue logo and the handshake. In that capacity, I manage a group of individuals that work with small and medium-sized businesses and government entities in the footprint that we have. And there'd be a couple of points that I would mention about that experience. As a result of that, I'm acutely aware of sometimes the financial challenges faced by small and medium-sized businesses who want to grow or relocate into highly attractive areas like McCandless. Secondly, in that capacity that I have at First National, I work with and have worked with entities that are similar to McCandless Industrial Development Authority, really across both the state of Pennsylvania and several other states. And I've been kind of watching and monitoring a bit the town's efforts to update the strategic plan for McCandless. And I think really how I would view it as the Industrial Development Authority may have an opportunity in partnering with the town council and the strategic plan that is laid out to try to promote and support the appropriate development in certain areas, like, for instance, the southern end of Perry Highway, to just name one. And to the extent that the Industrial Development Authority can, through its charter, facilitate appropriate development with and under the kind of the guidance of and direction of the town, that would be, I think, an important area, and I would enjoy the opportunity to participate in that. So those were a couple of comments that I had, and I'd be glad to address any questions people might have.
Yeah, Mark, you have over 35 years' experience in banking, including evaluating businesses' plans and financial statements. Did you ever get involved with the tax-exempt financing?
Yes. Banks are oftentimes approached by a variety of government entities to finance projects. And so as part of what I do for a living, my group would be, involved with that activity to a great extent. And so that could be, loans to entities like McCandless, for instance, instead of doing bond deals, and a whole host of things, school districts and whatnot.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
Sure.
Thanks, Mike.
What is your greatest asset that you'd bring to?
I think what I would note, and I would just reemphasize what I said, is that I think I can leverage some very applicable experience that I've built up over many years working in the banking industry, and tie that to an understanding of how businesses like to and want to invest in communities. And when you do it right, it's a partnership between those entities, whether it's businesses or residential development, and the communities in which they operate in. So I've seen it from kind of a third-party aspect, and I think I would look forward to the opportunity of being able to really apply those skills, if you will, in this situation.
Thank you.
Mark, how would you manage the potential conflict of interest with being on a board handing out public dollars in loans while potentially being a part of the capital stack of the project?
Yeah, so in terms of my role at First National Bank?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, so if there was, given what I know the bank does and what the Industrial Development Authority might be involved in, I don't perceive that there really be a situation where there would be, but if there would be any kind of situation that would come up where First National would be involved, I would certainly, exempt myself or recuse myself from any kind of involvement with that. That, again, knowing of my organization fairly well, I don't anticipate that, but I would certainly not want in any way, shape, or form anything to be tainted along those lines.
May I ask you how you learned of this opportunity?
How I heard about it?
How you learned about it, heard about it.
Oh, a couple of years ago, there was an opening, and I had a similar interview, and then I saw that it became, that there was another opening. I think I saw it in the local newspaper, and kind of contacted, and I had a conversation with Maria, and she said, yes, it's available, and would you be interested? And we exchanged some information, and here I am at 8:45.
Thank you so much.
All I have to say is I think that you would be very beneficial to the Industrial Development Authority.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Sure.
I have no questions, thank you.
Okay.
Me either.
I think your ideas are very intriguing and definitely worth some looking at. Thank you for
Sure.
coming.
Well, thanks for the
Pleasure
time
seeing
to
you.
come in and spend a few minutes with you.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Thank you.
Thank you much.
Thank you again.
David,
Thank you.
Thank you for those kind words, and so if ever need anyone to speak well for me, I'll certainly have you join up there.
hi, how are you? All right, so, there you are, okay. All right. Okay, so we have a nice resume here for you, so is there anything you'd like to add with this, for this?
Oh, well, I believe that my qualifications, as you can see for there, would fit very well with the UCC Appeals Board. Our experiences in construction, the technology behind construction, and the long-lasting effects of good and bad planning is what we see firsthand. We have always been, our business builds chemical plants. And we are totally always involved in the chemical plant and the neighborhood that's around it, obviously because of what the chemical plant does. So we always are very conscious of the fact that there is a marriage between the plant and the area around it, which is what I think the UCC board is. I think what we bring, or I bring to the table, is that the technical as well as the interface. When it's an appeals board, it typically becomes, why did I get this, or why didn't I get this, and so forth. And I think I'm well qualified to stand there and address those concerns to the people, the appellant, that says why it was declined or not, or why it was accepted or not accepted.
Right. As president of, I've reviewed your resume, and as president of Crescent Technologies, you've handled some significant projects. And so you are, obviously, you're familiar with the Uniform Construction Code, but what about our property maintenance code? It's on the website, and I just wondered if you took a look at that, or?
Yes, I looked at it, reviewed it. That's something that obviously kind of goes hand in hand with the maintenance of that. I think the property maintenance code, and I've always been involved in that, even many years ago when we lived in a condo, and this was back in Illinois. I was on their board with the property maintenance, because that is a first hand of how to kind of keep the property value up.
Right.
So that's.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and so we had to very gingerly express to any one of the inhabitants there that why they didn't want to have a barbecue out on their balcony, or why they didn't want to hang clothes over, and so forth. So I believe that the Maintenance Appeals Board is a way, which is definitely necessary, to try to keep the property values up and keep a minimum standards, so that there's always a resale value.
Okay, thank you.
What is your greatest strength that you would bring to this position?
My greatest strength, I believe, is the technical capability to handle it. What you see, the UCC, for a commercial code, we have similar in the industry. And I think it's also the fire protection. We also deal with the NFPA, National Fire Protection Agency, and the Uniform Construction Code. Yeah. That's you.
Yeah, I caught that.
So, so we know how to interpret it, and from a technical point of view, as well as now from the management point of view, as from the interface point of view with an individual who may or may not know why those codes are involved. I believe I can talk to them in a very individual nature to stand there and explain that, and and with the technical backup to enforce it.
Great, thanks.
David, I love your board experience with the homeowners association.
Oh.
How long have you lived in McCandless?
Oh, we've lived in McCandless since 1992.
And how did you learn about this opportunity?
Well, this is the second interview.
Second time around.
The second one.
First for me.
The first one. This is our second one, and then and that I think we got from the website.
Perfect.
And then when this particular reopened, I was called by Marie Hallen to stand there and see if I was still interested, which I am.
I'm glad. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming in. Your experience is tremendous, but I have no other questions. Thank you.
I looked at your resume very carefully. It's very impressive. I have no further questions.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Don't either?
Ditto what Bill said, thank you. Very nice.
This is the real David.
Yeah, this is the real David, not the fake David we had before.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
All right, I think that's, let's take a 5-minute break, 5-minute recess, and then we'll come back for our liaison. Ask her if she's ready to start the movie, I think. Oh, hold on.
The movie.
Movie.
Start the movie.
That's the best I have, John. Okay, let's get started on our liaison reports. We've received the reports that have been submitted by council members, so we can go through here and see.
Are we
if
gonna
there's
review the
anything.
consent agenda?
Did I miss the whole one? I missed the whole part, thank you. Thank you. So let's do that first. There's a draft for our business meeting. Invocation is Councilmember Schweiger. Pledge of Allegiance. Then will be to adopt the minutes from our business meeting and a reconvened business meeting. Then there'll be a public hearing on the ordinance accepting the budget and the real estate tax for 2019. Then there will be a public hearing on the ordinance that is reappropriating certain amounts of monies to the general fund. Announcements, reports, finance and personnel, checklist, review, accepting the checks. Move to adopt a resolution adding changing the, some of the dates for the planning commission. Planning commission, one of their dates changed. Zoning committee, ordinance 1481 for part 9, article 913, our stormwater management. You know, we had to do get rid of the old one and have a whole new one. That's that big document that we've been trying to get through. Move to adopt resolution 27, that's appealing resolution 24 of 2008, to specify the standard design criteria for stormwater management, soil erosion. That's more of the same.
Just that last sentence, that whenever the design standards change, rather than have to change the whole ordinance, we can have a recommendation to you, which can be done by resolution. So design standards are typically approved by resolution.
Okay. Okay, good. Public Works moved authorized to purchase a 10-ton dump truck. We can save, how much was it?
15,000, I think it was.
We can save a fair amount of money by ordering it now instead of waiting to next year. So we were gonna go ahead and, because that's on next year's budget, so we're gonna go ahead and approve that now. And I think we were supposed to add on here about, is the police cars on here?
It's in my manager's report.
But
We don't
we'll just
approve-
decide if we're gonna put it in here,
Make
okay.
sure you're satisfied.
Okay, all right, so we'll wait on that. That was CoStar, unfinished business, new business, public comment. Then we're gonna go into executive session to deliberate regarding the sheets. Council intends to vote to adopt written findings, either approving or denying the application on December 10th, 2018. Council also intends to discuss personnel matters, including an interview of a candidate for the position of town manager during this executive session. And then we reconvene on December 10th.
And I believe at the meeting we had with the consultant tonight, that interview is canceled. So
Right,
we can
he said
delete that segment. The manager candidate, I think, is
Sentence, yeah.
That's right, and but
canceled.
what
So-
we would need to reconvene this on the 3rd, because that's where we're doing our
Yeah.
second interview.
Right,
So it's not canceled, the date is different,
So that's right, so we'll just add an executive session
to
just to
reconvene.
announce that. Well, I think we've announced an executive session for December 3rd.
December 3rd, right.
And we can, Chris, can we tuck that executive session in like that, and then, rather than reconvene the meeting to the 3rd, do a leapfrog business with all these reconvenings?
I'm sorry, I'm just a little bit confused.
We're gonna move
It's
the
confusing.
interview to the 3rd
Okay.
of December, that last part of that executive session.
So at the next meeting, you'll announce that?
We want to announce the executive session would be on December 3rd.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can just do that announcement.
Any questions or comments about anything on the agenda?
But we won't be reconvening
No, you'll
on
reconvene
the,
the
we'll be
business meeting.
reconvening on the 10th.
So we will note in the
Right.
minutes that you had an executive session on December 3rd. But we will reconvene the business meeting on the 10th is the plan.
Oh, so it does stand, okay.
The reconvening stands.
Okay, now we're ready for the liaison reports. Greg, with planning and zoning?
Planning, they reviewed the Get-Go project up at in Wexford Flats up at Perry Highway and Wright Cove Road. there's a continuation of it till December 4th meeting, and they have had some issues with it, so. That was the extent of the planning commission meeting. They have a pretty extensive schedule on December 4th, which include the continuation of the preliminary and final approval of the land development application, and a review of on December 4th, review of the Dixon property from C7 to R3. And they also have a preliminary and final approval of a subdivision lot consolidation for Sheets Inc. I question, and maybe this is, we need to take a look at it, or Chris. The preliminary and final approval of subdivision lot consolidation for Sheets Inc. includes the properties located at 131 Montclair Avenue and the ones on Perry Highway, three ones on Perry Highway. And it seems to me that that may, because of the substance challenge that has been filed with the zoning hearing board, that may be under a stay.
Yes.
Yeah.
My recollection is Gavin and I discussed this last week, and that he was going to, I think we're in agreement with you that there's a MPC provides for a stay of all proceedings.
Yeah.
That's a substantive.
So that would probably be taken, these two items would probably be taken off the.
I believe so.
Okay, that seemed probable. And that's all I have on the planning commission.
Zoning?
The zoning hearing board held their meeting on November 15th, which was great weather. That's when we had this snowstorm that hit us. I wasn't there. I didn't make it. I didn't make it, not so much because of the snowstorm, but because it didn't really seem that important. They were both variances for signs, and I'm not sure where they came out on at the zoning hearing board. But I know what the storm did. Ooh.
I will tell you that the decisions were being written the day after, which was just this past Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So so I don't know the outcome actually,
Okay.
but I know they were out of here pretty fast.
Good.
I think they left about 10 after 8.
MTSA?
I really have nothing further to report beyond the minutes that you've received and Mr. Seaman's earlier report.
Pretty comprehensive.
Unless there were any questions.
Can we bring him back with the questions?
Thank you very much.
Just sit back and let him do it.
Ambulance authority?
There was no meeting this month, nothing to report.
All right. Library?
I'd just like to let everyone know that the library was a warm center during the storm, and did a tremendous job. And Amy emailed me today to tell me what a great job our police force did. They kept stopping in and checking on them to see if they needed anything or if they could do anything. So I just think that should be noted, that she said out of all of them, they opened it to all municipalities, but McCandless Police Force came in. So, plus the fact that they opened the doors and.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, that
They
was
were there
really
very,
great.
very late.
Till 10 o'clock, yeah.
So,
Thank
anyway, I
you,
just
our
thought we
library.
should mention that.
Yeah.
North Hill Council of Governments?
Meeting Thursday.
Okay, all right, we'll look for your report next month. Joint Rec Board? Not doing anything on that right now, are we?
And rest.
Resting,
Yep.
sleeping, hibernating.
Yep.
MIDA?
There's been no action on the MIDA since the last meeting.
Okay. Firefighter Steering Committee?
We haven't had a meeting, well, actually, geez, it was a month ago, so, nothing till, what is it, January, February, I think, is the next meeting. But I just wanted to remind everyone that the, banquet is on December 8th, the Chadwick, 6 o'clock.
Okay. North Pittsburgh Community Development Corporation?
No actions there's been no activity by that entity for some time.
Heritage Center?
The UC's policy has been approved. The fundraising promotional activities draft will need approval from council. And I'd just like to mention that donors who make donations of $45 or more will be considered to have earned a membership to the center for the calendar year. Donors who donate $200, their names will be published. And I also want to make a special note that the model train display will be December 5th and 6th. And it really is a very, very nice thing. And if you have any, well, adults, but if you have any young ones, that it's a very nice thing to take them. So to mention that, oh, there it is. Since the beginning of 2018, the center has received $2,896 in cash donations and donor brick orders, which I think is really kind of nice. So that tells me that the Heritage Center is growing in the community and people are becoming more and more interested in it. That's all I have at this time.
So has everyone had a chance to look over this policy?
Diane is here if you have any questions, if you want to answer any questions. She's here if anybody has questions and want to speak to her.
So, I read over this several times and called and talked to some friends that I have that are involved with nonprofits. And I didn't really see anything in here about promotion. This is supposed to be fundraising and promotion. I didn't see much about promotion on this. I didn't see anything. Councilmember Powers, you talked about a $200 donation. Is that on here? I don't remember seeing that.
No, but it's not on
Okay,
there.
so
I was
that's
just
not-
announcing that.
Okay,
that was
but
not
well,
on.
that should be, I would think that would be on here.
This is the policy.
Well, the policy and procedure, it seems to kind of be a mix of policy and procedure. I was very confused by the fundraising event, that you're not gonna go forward with a fundraising event unless you're gonna make back 50% of what it costs to do the fundraiser. Is that what that says? Why would you go forward with a fundraiser? You were only gonna make half of what you put into the fundraiser.
Well, it's not, when you look at the gross
Excuse me,
income,
Diane, you have to come up.
I'm
to the
sorry.
microphone, please.
okay, when you look at the
Give your
gross
name first.
income from an event, it's like if you pay $100 for a ticket and the facility spends $40 on putting it together, so then the gross income would only be $60.
Right.
So that's what the setup is. So we would have to make sure that we are not only earning back what we put into it, but coming out ahead by 50%.
Okay, what I was trying to understand what this said, it almost sounded like it was backwards, the way it was phrased, and I could be getting it mixed up, but it almost looked like, that wasn't the impression that I got from, I found that very confusing, and then the part about the donate, who the donors were gonna be, that was, about the corporate donors, who you were having, who you weren't having, who you were excluding.
At this time, we don't have any corporate donors, but what we are saying is if we had someone who would underwrite it, that we just need to make sure that they are supportive of the McCandless, it says up here, the resolution 14, that they are not going against the McCandless policies. I'm sorry, I'm not explaining that very well.
would it be okay for me to put you in touch with, to give you some contact information with someone who, has written like a bunch of these to
That would
maybe
be
help
great.
fine tune it just a
That would be
little
great.
bit? And because I'm no expert on this at all, but I'm having a hard time, understanding, what has been. Does anybody else have any questions about it, or are you? I think instead of gifts should be recorded in a database, I think gifts will be recorded.
Okay.
I think that's absolute something that would have to be done. I think you have to clarify on, harmful, under corporate support, products that may be harmful to the local community as determined by who. To the very bottom. But I do love, the idea of that, but I think some of these need to be maybe a little more measurable.
I agree. I mean, we're feeling our way at this point. We're just starting out.
Absolutely,
And we're
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
formulate a policy, and we know it's gonna have to be revised as we go along.
Right, and please do not take this as some harsh criticism. The work here is good. These are just some things that, I thought you might, be, might be helpful. Anyway, so I'm gonna pass on, the contact information and
Okay.
then see if, they can kind of help you, fine tune this just a little bit.
Yeah, I think especially in the corporate support, that would be really
Yeah.
helpful,
Yeah.
because since we're an arm of the town of McCandless,
Right.
we wanna make sure that whatever we do is not in conflict with
Exactly.
what the town, with the
Exactly.
standards the town has set, so.
This is a
that would
hard
be
thing to
great.
put together. I
Well,
mean, it's a hard
when you're
thing.
just starting out.
Yeah.
Because you're like trying to imagine what all the eventualities might be.
Exactly,
So-
exactly.
So any guidance, that would certainly
Okay.
be great.
And I would just like to bring up that we have an extremely dedicated group working there.
You guys have been meeting a lot,
They're
really working hard on
very,
this.
very
That's why
dedicated people.
I hope it doesn't come across as being, critical. We just wanna get it the best we can.
Well, it's
the
best
first
to put all
shot.
the effort in
Yeah.
in the beginning and make it as good as we can to
Exactly.
get started and then
Exactly.
go forward with it.
All right. Anyone else have any comments about this at all?
I just want to say, I do agree with the concept of the 50% net proceeds, so that events aren't simply churning dollars. I get that perfectly. I think that's a great
Sometimes you can get
benchmark
lost in all the
to use.
planning and not, you have to remember that
I've
this
seen
is
it
to make
happen.
money.
Yes,
And so we
thank
have to
you.
make sure that we make that very clear that we're not going forward if it's not gonna net us revenue.
Yes. Tweaks will be good.
Thanks, Diane, appreciate it.
Thanks. Anything on Community Day?
Okay, so the meeting is actually tomorrow, right?
It got postponed
Did it? Good, because I can't be
to
there.
the 27th, 10:30.
Okay. Okay, so, all I know is right now we have it set for September 14th, 2019.
Okay.
What's set for September 14th?
Community Day.
Next year.
Oh, next year, okay.
Yeah, because we already
Right,
passed
right.
it for this year. EAC, you, all got our minutes. I don't have really much to add on that for this month. We got a lot of new and exciting things that are coming up before you, but not just yet. Personnel Board.
Nothing as of now, but I wanted to point out that next Tuesday, November 27th, at Convive, the coffee shop here in McCandless Crossing, that we'll be having a coffee with our cops and eating of thanks for an hour. So they will have free coffee and like cookies and stuff.
What time?
6:30 to 7:30.
That's PM.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Posted it on Facebook.
Yeah, I think it just went out today.
You said November 27th?
Yes, next Tuesday. And that's it.
What are the details on that again, please?
So next Tuesday, 6:30 to 7:30 at Convive.
what happens then?
It's an evening of thanks, you can come out, but there'll be probably at least 5 to 7 police
I'm
officers
sorry,
there.
I'm not understanding what you're saying.
It's an evening of thanks, coffee with the cops.
Evening of thanks,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
That's
Coffee
the-
and-
That's the best way to describe it, coffee with
Mhm.
cops.
And where does that take place, down at the
At
Harrod?
Convive, the coffee shop, Convive, over there in McCandless Crossing,
How do you spell Convive? You've had it.
Convive.
Thank you.
I'm trying to think, what is the name of that street? It's right across from the burgers.
Providence.
Providence,
Boulevard.
okay.
It's off Providence.
Yeah.
It's a McCandless Crossing. Okay.
It's the only coffee shop named from Vive in McCandless Crossing.
Anywhere, I think, maybe. So we're gonna do the budget last, a little change of order, yeah. So, you wanna do manager's report, or you wanna do my little mini? Okay. One, did you guys see the report in your pack about the sidewalks?
Yeah.
Feedback.
Yeah, it seems to be pretty expensive. Yeah,
It's a long sidewalk.
so it seems pretty expensive.
Seems pretty expensive.
Yeah.
You thought
Did
it was-
we expect
Sidewalks
it to
are
be cheap?
expensive. Okay, so.
Did you think it was expensive even if our men did it?
Well, I think we certainly targeted a great corridor for sidewalks, so I like the targeting, right, start that connection in North Park, tie it back to Blazer Drive eventually, I mean,
Yeah, but-
it's the right place, it's a good place to start.
Maybe it's a good place, but do you think maybe they should do the development off of Blazer first, and then we could sort of, if that's a go, we could tie it into,
This was actually Grubbs Road, is my
This is
understanding.
Grubbs
yeah,
Road.
right, yeah.
It is.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
not
the
sure how
walking,
Blazer and.
well, Blazer it would be the walking trail, the new development they showed.
Right, yeah. I
Yeah,
understand
so
what you're
they
saying.
would have a walkway along, what is it, McCandless Drive? And then tie into.
There already is a walkway on.
Well, yeah, but, and then tied into their, continue on to North Park.
But this one, what we're talking about though, is coming in front of the town hall.
Yeah, I know, and tied into North Park though, would be just, go down McCandless Drive, take a right on, in front of, Grubbs Road, and then go on, out to North Park.
Haven't we already budgeted for?
Well, we're looking to do that in this budget.
Page 2 of my.
Thought we already did that last year.
I did a brief synopsis. Page 2 of my report.
I mean, I guess I viewed it as a missing link because there's already been so much sidewalk investment there, and with the park and the bike lanes there, and the bike shops, that this was,
Blazer Drive there connects
So,
to where
so
we're talking.
Toby looks at,
Yeah.
we got the full report, but there's a little mini version on page 2 of the town manager's report there. So the sidewalk itself was,
The actual sidewalk's 45,000.
the actual, just the sidewalk
Right.
is 45,000.
Right, if our guys.
Right.
Yeah, and our guys would prep the area, we would do the grading.
And then I thought, well, maybe it would be cheaper to extend the road and make a bike lane and forgo the sidewalk, and then people could walk in the bike lane. And that was $28,000.
With the one caveat, that, as the engineers point out, that we cannot sign the bike lane if we just put out the standard singular bike lane. We cannot sign them and encourage people to walk on it. So we-
Yeah.
So
That's the bad thing.
that's
Right.
the
That's
down.
conflict.
So this,
Right,
and
yeah.
so the point is that Dan did the, as he should. Here's what if a contractor was brought in, prep the whole site, bid it out and so forth, and put the sidewalk in, it's $102,000. If our people prep the site, the sidewalk itself, Dan's number for the sidewalk was 42, Mark Sabino's number was 45, so they're in the same ballpark. The bike path, itself is 28,000. You can't just put in a bike path. I verified that with Dan Dice Rock. That's just gonna take a 4-foot widening on the side of the road, move our wedge curb over, tie in the drainage, so that's a $28,000 number. So there's actually several alternatives here. Sidewalk and bike path, which if we put the sidewalk in, it's 45,000 plus 28,000, which would be 73,000 with our men doing the site prep work.
Well, where does the bike trail start and where does it end?
This would be a segment of a bike trail, and I think, you know, part of that would come, I think, with some of the planning that we're hearing from the Paschik study, would be, we may do, in this case, we had a sidewalk along McCandless Drive, I'm sorry,
Right,
already.
yeah.
So
Right.
we could post share the ride signs on McCandless
Right.
Drive. Then the thought would be, what do you do on Blazier Drive in a more global planning sense? Do we probably don't do a bike path there, but you do share the road there, because Blazier Drive is extra wide, you can mark that one pretty easily. So I think some of that is gonna come, as you're saying, in the future.
Right.
From the Paschik study, and then what would come out of the development that's gonna occur on Blazier Drive.
Right.
But this segment, we could put, I think some thought does have to happen about what do we encourage to come to this point? Do we encourage bikes and people on foot? So whatever we decide to encourage, we should do. To me, optimally would be our forces would prep the site, we put a sidewalk in, we put a bike path in, you're ready for whatever comes your way. I mean, if you wanna do this next year. If you wanna do it next year, we could put the money in the capital budget. I don't know if we would get any kind of grant for something this small, but so I think you put a placeholder in there, maybe you.
I'm trying to figure out where with that Blazier site development, and the one we saw the other, several months ago at the planning commission meeting. Where's all this bike traffic come from? I mean, I don't ever see any bikes.
I live on that road and there are bikes coming down there.
Well,
all
coming
day
down the
long.
hill, are you gonna extend the bike trail up the hill?
It'd be nice if we could.
Well, that's my point is.
I think this bike trail would likely connect over to Vestal Field eventually, all along Blazier Drive on both sides of Blazier. That was talked during the Paschik early report. So that's still to come, exactly how that would work out. And that's on the cusp of coming.
If the development came in, that would be maybe pretty good, but I don't really see a necessity for it now.
I had kind of assumed that we would be doing, when we did new roads on these paths, we would kind of, you know, as the road got paved would be when we would, it's because we're talking now about going in separately and just paving this 4 foot wide or whatever it is.
Well, if you do the sidewalk would be different. That would
Right, of
be
course, the
okay.
sidewalk would be different,
Yeah.
but the share the road part, I assumed, you know, whatever main road got done on the Paschik recommendations next would get that at the time. So I don't know that I would necessarily personally be thinking about this. I mean, I could think about doing the sidewalk through this area, but when, do you know when, for example, Grubbs is getting paved next, or Pine Creek is getting paved next, or?
Well, why would you do the sidewalk? I mean.
Well, I would be
Would
more
you
likely to do the sidewalk than, and or wait until the next road was being paved that we could widen it, than go in and widen the road for only that little bit of paving. Seems odd.
It's not a little bit of road for the paving, it's actually like 4 more feet or something.
Well, I understand that, but going in and cutting out, first of all, cutting 4 feet out is not necessarily that easy, because most tractors don't have the 4 foot blades to them.
Well, they can do it, we know they can do it.
Well, I
They're
understand
smart.
they
I mean,
can,
they've got
but-
they've got the ability, and this is what the cost would be.
Right, but I guess my question would be,
Wait till it gets
what would the
paved.
cost be comparatively to when it was being paved? Because
We would add this to the paving program, so because we're doing a large quantity.
that's
I
not
see
what-
what you're, I know what you're
I
saying.
think Councilman Martz makes a good point, it'd be more economical to do it while you're mobilized.
right, like when is Babcock? When is the next major road being paved? Not necessarily any of these.
Ours?
Right.
Well, when we finish Blazer after the development is done over here is the next one. Corporate Drive is still in pretty good shape. Grubbs isn't due for a long time. Actual paving of Grubbs.
Right, but I'm talking about in general on the, what do we think is next? Is Babcock next?
No,
Is
Babcock State.
Inglemoor next? Is,
Both are states, so.
but when we get those, when they come in, we can't add to the price of to widen the road or talk to them about
That
sharing
would
the
be
road?
state,
Or
who would make that decision if they wanted that to happen.
we wouldn't even be able to ask that as an option.
We could ask, but that's an ask, not a
Well,
demand.
who's putting in the sidewalks on Babcock? Who's involved in that
If
project?
that sidewalk project goes on Babcock, we would apply for an intermodal grant, a significant amount of money.
Is there-
A seven-figure number.
Yeah, well, maybe there's some sidewalks going in there now on Babcock.
Right, Terrace Place is putting sidewalks in. The Concension development.
Yeah, that's up by, but also closer to the beginning, closer to McKnight Road. There's some,
You're talking about near the college?
yeah, maybe it's,
that
maybe
what-
that's,
College is
maybe
putting
that's.
sidewalks
Yeah, the
in
Roche
right
is
now.
putting-
Yeah, right near the college.
Okay,
That's
so
what-
it's.
College had a plan, that's their sidewalk plan for their side of Babcock.
Okay.
Your suggestion would be, we have a placeholder already in the budget. We have it recommended for the budget carryover from this year, the $45,000 that Mark Sabina estimated, that's already proposed in the 2019 budget. You may just want to consider that as a placeholder and carry that forward, and talk about, you could add the $28,000 for the bike path if you would want to do that. It's a fairly small placeholder, frankly, in a capital budget. If you'd like to do that, and just have this conversation subsequently in early 19, bring the town engineer out if you want, and have a little bit more of a discussion.
Well,
on some
yeah,
of this.
but can you see my point in getting Blazer Drive, the development in there, and then having some people really using it, maybe?
Judging from what I'm hearing at the PASHIC meetings, the meetings at our comprehensive planning committee, I don't think that there would be a difference whether that development is there or not, other than perhaps signage saying that this is a share of the ride. I didn't hear anything. Steve, were you at that meeting, or Bill, the meeting with?
The last meeting I was at, I don't remember hearing anything about.
We had the
signage.
transportation special meeting during the day.
Wasn't it that one?
And they talked about, we had 3 different groups, they broke up the implementable planning committee into 3 different groups, so we had a lot of stakeholders involved. And what came out of that was a bike-directed path along Blazer by signage primarily, and Blazer Drive's wide, that's one of our widest 2-lane roads, and easily could be painted for a bike lane, or certainly share the ride.
Right, but I
See,
don't
they
wanna
had
do
no
anything to
bike-
Blazer until
Bike interest.
Yeah, until we do that,
developments
what's gonna
and,
happen?
But we're not
right,
talking about doing anything.
Yeah.
more.
right.
So
Well,
this
but
isn't
that's
about
what Greg was
Blazer.
just talking about.
Oh, well, Blazer's not our job to do. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about where the
McKinley's,
town, where the
right
property
Right in front of
starts.
the town hall,
Public Works,
the front of the town hall.
Public Works, all the way to
Yeah,
Public
right,
Works,
Right,
all the way down to Ingomar,
right.
which
So-
connects you straight into North Park.
So what happened to the money we had put aside for the sidewalk from the corner?
He
to-
just said he was holding it. It's still in the budget.
That's still in there.
Kim
Okay.
talked with me about, what about a bike lane instead of a sidewalk, or with a sidewalk?
Just see what the money
This-
would
that's-
work out.
Because we hadn't gotten it, Mark Sabata got his quote, he was about ready to launch into a project to get the sidewalk put in, and, we had this discussion at the PASHIC, planning table, and Kim and I talking about it, and said, let's investigate this, so.
How
we
much
did.
money was that?
28,000 for the bike path,
The one that, what we had put aside before.
45,000?
45 for the
We
sidewalk.
had 45,000 set aside,
Right, and we
Right.
still have that.
and
We
great.
still have it.
We still have
Item number 4.
So it would only be
Toby's
putting
report.
the 28 is extra, right?
Well, if we wanted to do just the bike, no sidewalk, it'd be 28, period.
I'm not sure I'm real happy about just the bike.
I
agree
Right.
with you.
You know, I was just giving
Especially
us more
here.
choices. You know, I'm not,
Yeah,
I'm
right,
just
right.
I
giving
mean-
more choices.
If you lead by example,
Yeah.
Which
we
would
shouldn't
be-
pave the front of our. We should do it the right way across the front of the building at least.
I think that's an excellent
Dan's
example.
picture,
I
our
agree.
engineer's picture in here, I wanted him to give you, and this little.
Oh, the drawn
the little
lines,
drawing
right.
is the prototype. If you do wanna create a prototype, there it
I
is.
mean, I agree, if we're in a starting where, I think starting here at the town hall says something, since
Right.
we wanna connect and do sidewalks all over town, I think
And if we're
this
gonna
is.
do it, let's do it right.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
why do half?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
And that traffic goes both ways, so we're opening up the Heritage Center to all the folks.
We
in
still
North
have a
Park,
problem
and
with the
rest of
bridge though,
North Hills
right?
Residents that are riding in North Park and walking.
Because you're
Dan
walking
hasn't-
right by the
Dan hasn't
Heritage
pointed
Center.
out in his report what you do about the bridge.
Right.
I'm sorry, Bill. I'm sorry.
What's Rich?
This
The
one right
Rugg's
here.
Road
There's a
Bridge,
little
there's a
bridge there.
3-foot wide area between the white line and the bridge abutment. And you basically post that,
Merge.
making sure people understand there's a constriction ahead, a little constriction sign. You share the path, share the ride. That's how you get over the bridge. And by the way, PennDOT owns that bridge. We own Grubbs Road, PennDOT owns the bridge. That's an old story, I'm not gonna tell you that.
And then when they have to replace it, we'll make it wider then. Okay, so not that we're making a decision, but because we can't vote at this meeting. So what do we wanna do with this?
I
I
think we
would
have to
wait.
go all the way.
My vote is sidewalk and the bicycle.
That's what I would do too.
No objection to a placeholder, no objections to a placeholder at this time, yeah.
I agree
Now,
with
by
John.
placeholder, that means waiting and not doing it now.
Right.
We're all on the vote right now, aren't we?
I
We
don't-
should vote next week.
Well, no,
Or next-
no, it would just be in the budget. We would just put it in the budget, and then we could do it. Okay, so I didn't know what you meant by
we can
placeholder.
vote.
I didn't understand that.
And then bring it up again in early spring or late winter and say,
Right.
okay, we have this placeholder, what are we doing? Are we going, are we telling Mark Sabino to get this done? What
So
are we
we
doing?
already have the 45, we only have to put the 28 in, correct?
If you want us to.
Add 28 to the 45.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out where does the pedestrian traffic come from? Where is it coming from?
All the neighborhoods, the
Parkland,
hill,
up Grubbs,
up Grubbs.
Parkland.
the apartments. Those are all the people that come down that hill.
And walking?
Some walk, some ride their bikes. I walk down that hill. Deb walks down that hill.
I know my parents and all their neighbors
Yeah.
do too.
I've
seen a lot. I see a lot.
I see the Swiders coming down that hill. Okay, all right, good. All right, placeholder, we'll revisit it again, but we got a place for it in the budget.
A short-term placeholder, I would, because
I
I was under the
forever,
impression that we would already had this done this spring, when we first.
I know, it got
Discuss
lost.
this.
It got
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about making the,
So that should be rediscussed again.
But you can't do it
early
until the spring.
Right.
well, I understand that, but
You know, Steve, if we had put the sidewalk in, it would be up closer to Grubbs and then there wouldn't be a bike path there. So
well,
it's
we
kinda-
could have left the sidewalk, we could have put it wherever we wanted to, but.
Well, but we didn't have this idea till lately. All right, the next thing is, I wanted to, call your attention to the small, you remember we did the small business, Saturday? Remember we adopted that, supporting small local business? So I wanted to go, one step further with that. And so what we're doing is we are gonna, John or Toby, I don't know who came up with the idea of a local small business bulletin board that we might put on our Facebook page. And so that small locally owned businesses in McCandless can, put their name on there. So you know where to shop, and we're also gonna do a designation, some way, I don't know, an asterisk or whatever, minority owned or woman owned businesses. So, that will be, that's been on our Facebook page and that's something that's coming. So if you know people that have locally owned businesses, please tell them to look forward to that so they can get their business on there so we can support
So do they
that.
contact us, or,
Contact John,
and so they can't go and put it on that page?
Administration@townofmcandless.org is who they'll contact. One more thing is that we're still working on getting the, Savvy Citizen calendar on our website. What we have to do is we gotta get together a policy, that's what the holdup is get together a policy so we can, know what the criteria are for getting on that.
If I may follow up, Chris, we have had discussions with Gavin John Bajarski is working on a draft to send to you about that policy. I'll review it, and you may end up getting that.
Very good. The attorneys will say, nobody goes on there.
Well, he's not allowed to say that. He's
That's what
the
they
guy-
all say, don't do it, don't do anything. So we pay him to tell us, don't do anything fun. Managers report?
I had 3 items, you got it down to 2, but I do need your guidance on, please. Item 2, Green Light Go Grant. This is an excellent program that PennDOT has. Our latest application was turned down because it was maintenance oriented. PennDOT has come out with new guidelines just recently after our budget, 2019 budget was drafted. And that simultaneous to that, Mark Sabina has reported, Bill Kirk, you're pretty aware of what's going on or what's not going on up in Wexford Flats.
Yes.
The processors, technology is a wonderful thing. Technology can wear out faster than some of the older style technology, like loop detectors that they used to have in roads. Well, by us proposing, we cleared this with our traffic engineer, him getting a hold of PennDOT. We have cleared this for a good application that would be worth consideration if we use today's state-of-the-art equipment, which is radar detectors, not for monitoring speed and issuing traffic tickets, but radar detectors instead of cameras, which are up in the Wexford Flats. And that would be the most state-of-the-art technology and upgraded processors, because believe it or not, these processors, doesn't seem like that long ago when they were installed into this big Wexford Flats project, are now wearing out. So,
Wow, yeah, that was.
but we would upgrade them, so because we'd get a double header on this, in fact, upgraded technology to run the signals and upgraded technology on queuing up cars. The total cost of that project is estimated at $199,000.
For 3 lights,
3 signals.
3 signals.
Technology is
That's
getting
why I kind of
expensive.
thought so. It wasn't,
We're in the wrong business.
And so, but if we get the Green Light Go grant, our share would be $40,000. I would suggest that we add this to our capital program.
And we don't need the cameras,
But they
I
still
kinda
make
thought the cameras were,
surveillance.
yeah, like here was an accident, who actually was the cause of the
Now,
accident?
those
Here was
cameras
a-
are actually, they're doing a video of the queue of the traffic. They're not doing anything else.
So if there's an accident up there, the police can't go up and say,
No.
oh, look, here's the guy running the red light.
That would be a different camera.
yeah, it'd be different.
Okay, I thought they were all doing the same
This
thing.
just says when there's a lot of traffic, the light lasts longer. When there's no traffic, the light is shorter.
That's it. So, if there's no objections, if I could, I'd like to,
I don't
I'd
have
really
an
like to put that in the
objection.
capital budget.
Yep.
It'd be
Apply-
better, it'd
apply
be great
for
to get
that.
that money. Okay, lastly, other than my status reports, I gave a number of status reports, but the other thing we have talked about briefly, it was brought up at last week by the police at the meeting, our budget meeting on that subject, and the police have followed up. I got an email memorandum from Lieutenant O'Connor, which is in your packet. If we can do the same thing we just did with the Public Works truck, we will save $11,400 by buying 2 still considered new 2018 police vehicles that are being held for us right now till November 30th by the vendor under the state contract.
They are new, they're not used.
Right.
Yeah.
They're new.
So the
They're just this year's model.
Sounds like a smart move.
I agree. So,
Thank you.
so let's do that.
Yep.
And then unless you have questions about my status reports, I have anything else.
Okay, let's go over our budget. Is that it, right?
Yep.
What's next?
Right. Did Deb make a comment on the agenda item? I don't see why not.
Yeah,
Right.
make it fun. Yeah, go. All right, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you very much for working on the bike lanes and the pedestrian sidewalks, and recognizing that pedestrians have a place on the roads as well as bicyclists. And all the roads that you talked about today, I bike on, I walk on, my neighbors do, and neighbors over here. So I really appreciate you promoting that as a healthy means of transportation, both walking and biking, and making it safe. I've never biked up up Grubbs Road because I'm afraid, and I've been biking for 30 years. So I don't think that will change in the near future, but thanks. And just a suggestion, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel, there is an organization called Bike Pittsburgh, and they're in the city, but I'm sure they've done a lot of research on the things that you were talking about and tossing, do we have a share of the road sign, or do we have a lane, or, I'm not an expert on that, but I know a lot of times as a cyclist, I'll be biking along and, oh, this is so nice, I have a bike path, and then all of a sudden it ends and you have a sign. So it happens right over on Babcock Boulevard, right outside the park. If you go up Babcock there by the cannon, that's a prime example. You have your bike lane, and then all of a sudden you have this little tiny space, and it says share the road, and you're sharing with vehicles, big trucks and cars. So, but look at Bike Pittsburgh. And the one suggestion I would make, though, for Blazer Drive at the intersection of Inglemoor Road and Blazer is that light, and you're talking about lights, I don't know how that clicks, but if you're a bicyclist and you come to that red light, it really doesn't change unless a car comes behind you. So you have to wait and keep looking to hope that a car comes so you can pull out as a cyclist onto Inglemoor Road. There is something in the law and the vehicle code that says that if you wait long enough, you can go if you deem it safe. I have done that. The other thing, I had a question about this recent critical incident that we had with the snow storm. And I know we have Savvy Citizen, and I think I've been at a meeting where recently we were discussing how Savvy Citizen was to send text messages out somehow, or emergency messages. So I think this was a good example of maybe looking at our critical incident policy and evaluating if there's any way to let residents know. I'm assuming a resident would have to sign up and give their phone number and, to get some information about what's going on during these incidents. It's just a suggestion, but thanks for all you did and all the work that everybody did during this incident. I've worked on many critical incidents with the school district, and I helped develop their crisis plan. So I can appreciate, what everybody was going through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I didn't say town attorney's report. Do you have anything?
Gavin provided an update regarding a personnel matter. Did everybody receive that?
We did.
Okay.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I just thought I'd check. Okay. Budget,
We're starting with 400.
400.
Town council.
Anything on town council?
Status quo, other than, we are projecting reducing the amount, depending on the attendance. We've been looking at the attendance and, town council at some of the events, so we thought that might improve the budget less. That's certainly your, and so that was a suggestion, we put this in, on page 11 as a suggestion. I was tracking history on that. Pages.
Any comments on that? 401?
401.
Well, I gotta confess, I didn't understand what you said. I looked-
Historically, attendance, we looked at the history of council's attendance. I may have been talking pretty softly.
Well, it's council's attendance.
Council's attendance at conferences.
Oh, conferences, okay. All right.
And so, we're looking at the history, so we tried to budget connected to history, for one thing, and number two, following the credo for this year, tighten up anywhere we could. Tried to do that.
Where does that number appear here?
It's under seminars and conferences. It should be item number, other services and charges on the first page of the summary, and then on page 12, item 460. You can see where we, in 2016, a little over 13,000, a little over 11,000, so this year about 12,000, so we thought it was safe to budget with our last 3 years' history.
Did you say
460.
460 on page 12.
So we cut a little bit out of that trying to reduce costs?
Reduce costs to some extent, or acknowledge the reduction of
Budget,
cost.
the
3
cost.
years, three-year history is.
Based upon what's, the past is prologue, then, right?
Obviously, one of the key things to budget is what is budget history.
I got you.
And of course,
All right,
going
thank you, I
forward.
understand now.
Yes, sir. Okay, my manager, the manager's office section is what primarily is floor one. We're gonna get a report on the effect of the change in the town retainer, working on that, an update on that. How we changed from the retainer format. So a comment I'll make is throughout the budget, if you look at categories, we have some categories we may have budgeted a certain amount for direct billing, for hourly billing by the town attorney. And we're gonna be over on some of those categories. And that's because our retainer changed dramatically to just the meeting attendance for the retainer. And so the retainer has dropped dramatically. So we're gonna give you an updated report as to where that stands. And so I would that's just something that you're gonna see throughout the budget. Where that, again, you may see some overages and certainly some under.
And Toby's gonna shake out all those numbers, so we can see if we're doing better doing without the retainer or with the retainer. Remember, we talked about that, and we would reevaluate that if it showed. Okay, so we're still waiting on those numbers.
Okay, the budget, the manager's office is a good bit less than last year, and just a little bit more than what we anticipate spending this year. So looking through, nothing really that dramatic. I comment on meetings, seminars, and conferences. I've reduced that a good bit, just for future reference. That where I have it at $5,100. This category used to have the town attorney also going to conferences on the town's budget, and that is not happening now. And that $5,100 is the International City Management Association attendance, State Managers Association, and those two combined cost a little over $2,000. The balance of those is the conference in the spring, Allegheny League of Municipalities, and the Township Convention in the summer and the fall. So those are the three other ones that are more elected official oriented. So I believe that the spring conference is very valuable for the manager to attend, especially to mix it up with locals and a lot of good exhibits and so forth. The other two would be something for future discussion. But I put in for all the ones that have been historically for the manager to attend, $5,100. And lastly, a comment about municipal vehicle. Kim Zachary, as our council president, asked me a couple months ago to analyze and get vehicle reports from all departments, which I did. And we've heard a report from the police department already. And as far as the administration goes, we have discussed, there are currently 3 vehicles that the administration uses. Zoning has a vehicle that they use, code enforcement, and I have a vehicle that I use. And Kim asked if we could get 3 into 2, and I've studied that, and it is possible to do that and eliminate a vehicle in the administration area. So
I have a question.
and I did want to change, one last
Sorry.
comment, I did want to change, when I looked at the capital budget, because I think one of the vehicles the mechanics are gonna tell us to keep is the Taurus that we have that I've been using. And that car is a little over 4 years old. It's holding up well. It was, town council, Jerry Hoffman said, get that car Z-barred, so I did. And so it's not gonna rust away, that car's gonna last 8 to 10 years. So I have it, I wanna add a year to its life and put it in the 2022 capital budget. So that's my comment on that.
I have a question. I have a bit of a concern that I'm feeling that there are decisions being made before they are discussed with all members of council. My feeling is there are 7 of us on this board, and just as an example, this car thing. And I'm not saying we should get rid of a car, we shouldn't. That's not the point I'm making here. The point I'm trying to make is that if we decided that we want to get rid of a car, or we want the mileage taken, or whatever we decide, it should be decided with 7 of us, not just 1 or 2 on the board. That's just my feeling. I don't know how anyone else feels, but there have been several decisions made, and the decisions are brought to us after they're already made. Okay, this is what we think. What's your vote? Well, my feeling is that we need to discuss that among us. You know what I'm saying? I just feel, I feel very concerned about that we're not, 7 people aren't discussing it. It's maybe 1 or 2 persons that are making decisions, and then that's brought to us. That's just my thought.
I think that's what we're doing right now. If we had talked about it and Toby said, oh, well, there was no way to even possible to do it, then there'd be no reason to discuss it. But when he said, yes, it is possible to do it, but now we're bringing it here, I mean, that's what we're doing now. The idea has to start somewhere, right? But that's what we're discussing now. We're approving the budget. None of this is in stone. We can change any of this. This is the budget we're currently looking over. This is the time to decide. That's what that was just an idea to try to make, you know.
But I still think, Kim, that there are decisions that are being made, and I'm aware that there are, that were not discussed among 7 people. And I think the discussions need to be with 7 people. And then, okay, if we decide we don't need 3 cars or whatever, then we say to Toby, okay, Toby, we need for you to give us mileage, you need to give us this information or whatever. Before, I assume it was you that approached him, and before you went to him, I think you should have said to council, what are your thoughts? I'm thinking that, do we need all these cars? Maybe we should ask Toby. And then get everyone's opinion, and then decide what we want. You know what I'm trying to say? I just feel a concern there that I think that we're losing the continuity of 7 people working together. That's just my thought. I don't know how anyone else feels, but that's just how I feel at this point.
What are your
Anyone else have a
thoughts?
comment? Anybody
Well,
else?
we have talked about that. I basically agree with Joanne. I think there's, I think the involvement of all 7 council persons should be sought for decision-making. And while I recognize that that there is the potential that it could have been at 4-3, and you're basically, your view is rendered nugatory because you're in the 3 and not the 4. But I think as a cooperative group of people, and in the interest of transparency, there ought to be an effort made by the council president, I think, particularly for your leadership role, to involve us, and I think it's just that simple.
My feeling is that I understand you're council president, and you're kind of, leading, but again, I don't think that you should make decisions without talking to us. I mean, you're the one eventually that will go to Toby or discuss it with him, and that's understandable. But I also think that you need to take the opinion of all 7 of us. That's just my thought.
And that's what we're doing right now.
No, I feel like, I feel like this is already down here. This has already been discussed. This is already down here. That's just.
So we need to make a line of something somewhere where it becomes a discussion of all 7.
Right.
Because obviously everything I talked to Toby about, I mean, it wouldn't even be right for me to go to, I mean, I guess I could individually write each one of you, but, to keep it from becoming a quorum, I couldn't, or Kim couldn't say, hey, 7 of us were talking to Toby about removing a car. So I guess where's that line, and how do we need to make some sort of policy over it.
Steve, I think you're spot on. I understand what Kim's saying, and I agree. We're making the decision now, It's a question of directing the town resources, and I became acutely aware of this when I made phone calls on my own to investigate one of the zoning ordinances, and I, rightfully so, hey, we need to float that by everybody. And I think the same way here, if we wanna take initiatives that affect the whole town, we should have some type of a protocol or
Yeah, we need a
a
line
process.
drawn somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's right. And by the way, I think the car initiative is a good one to look
Right.
at.
Yeah, I would
And look
agree.
at look, is it cost effective? Before we say let's get rid of it, I assume, Toby, you're saying that because you've looked at mileage and you've looked at the cost of the vehicle operationally, and it'll be less costly for the town to operate with 2 vehicles instead of 3.
That's correct.
And pay mileage. Perfect. Exactly what we should do.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying, yes, get rid of a car, don't get rid of a car. I'm just making a side point, I
Right.
guess is what
Well,
I'm saying.
but that's what this is about now, to say, this is for you to say, if everybody hates this idea, then we won't do it. There's no decision made. That's what I think you're misunderstanding. You're thinking that this is something that is a decision that's made. It would be improper to
No.
make a decision for one person. But this was an idea I had, just like the EAC was an idea I had. I didn't ask everybody, hey, what do you guys think about having an EAC? I presented that idea to everybody. And I, things move so slowly as it is, I think it would be hard to get each person to say, hey, what do you think, what do you think, what do you think, what do you think?
Pain
We
in the
would
butt,
never
too.
get anything moved forward. And like I said, if Toby had said, it's not really possible, then we wouldn't even, there's about 1,000 things we talked about that aren't really possible. So they all got killed. So, thousands exaggeration, but there were a few things that we put in here. And if you said, no, we want 3 cars in administration, then we'd be like, okay, well, we'll have 3 cars in administration. So,
I think this stems from bigger things, but I certainly see both
Yes,
things
you're,
here.
you're exactly right.
You know,
You're exactly right.
We got, because I know you guys talk enough that I probably don't want to know everything you talk about because it would just be a nuisance.
You don't want to think about it anyway.
Right, you know, but I don't know, is there a way to make a notification page to town council without it becoming a quorum issue?
Well, I'm just trying to think also, you know, I think we're all trying to carry our own weight in our own areas. You know, like I had a meeting with Toby last week, was it, about the budget with O'Connor.
Right.
You know, we're all trying to do our part, and I gave him my suggestions too and said, hey, why are these cones so expensive? You know, we investigated a few things to figure out where could we save. Now, should I go and be like, oh my gosh, let me tell everyone, you know, if we did, we would never get anywhere, you know? So
Right,
we do
so
have to figure out a way of how we can make everyone feel still like they're included and they're a part of things, but this is why we're all here trying to make these discussions happen now.
That's where I would think that we would start looking at, is there some sort of thing that you can think
The
of?
problem would be, like, as soon as you start having discussions for the purpose of making a decision, the Sunshine Act kicks in.
Right,
You
that's
gotta
what I'm
do it in a
saying, is
public
there a
meeting.
way to
What
to
I
get
could think
around-
of, if there was topics, a dollar threshold, something of significance that maybe, but I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, as far as
Yeah.
issues would go, I mean,
There's no, like, manager's email that would happen every Friday that could say something, might talk to Kim about the car, talk to Carolyn about the cones, talk to Bill about square
as soon as you
dancing.
start having group emails, the concern for something
Right.
bad to happen
Yeah.
because it exists. But as long as you're just
Isn't it a
gathering
matter of
information, if you're gathering information and soaking in information, then that
Yeah,
is
this
not
wouldn't be a
deliberation.
a responsive
Just
email.
Don't hit reply all and
Right.
say, no, this is how I feel about this project.
Right, it would just be and if you sent out an email that once a week that I talk to these 3 people about these 3 things,
But
that might
yes.
be of importance.
One of the things that you have continued, the tradition of McCandless has been, which some communities follow, others follow, the committee structure a little differently. And Michael, this is something for you to, this is definitely a note-taking opportunity. A lot of municipal governments have committees of the 3 in a 7 member group so that they don't violate the quorum law, the state law. And council here in McCandless for years has had a chair of each of the program areas. You've heard us talk maybe at the other committee meetings. So what happens is each, the safety chair just spoke about, and she couldn't be here last night, so she had me convey a couple of points, which I did about what we had in our meeting, about her area. Our council president is also our finance chair, and she's saying, is there a way you can save money about 3 people going into 2 cars? Is that gonna work? And I thought about that, and we can make that work. So that's what she's saying is being reported tonight.
Right.
Mr. Kirk is the services chair. That's a lot of different.
Well, I made my feelings known about my staffing concerns for next year or the year after.
And I have a little, I mean, just like for
Public Works.
the,
So
for the thing with Public Works with Toby, just last month, but 3 months ago when I went to him, I saw the signs rotting back there in the back from the road signs, and I didn't even think to ask anybody. I said to Toby, hey, can we cut those signs apart and put them out for Community Day?
So what
Which I didn't ask anyone, maybe I should have too. I know that was very minor compared
I was there.
to, you know, to next to the car and next to the,
So when
I'm
it
just
comes-
saying, where's the line?
For everybody,
Yeah.
let me get my point of view. I've been doing this a long time, but I've done a lot here out in Selinsgrove for a few years. They had the 3-member committees out in Selinsgrove, and when the 3 members, with the chair would come back and report, the rest of the council would ask so many questions, the people would sometimes get perturbed. The 3, well, we were there, we're the committee, we're recommending this. So the committee structure is really good to have one person is the contact person for that area. I think it's good from a manager's perspective, and that gets the ball started. So you make the distinction, the sign thing, that's a perfunctory act. We took care of it. That's my job to get, well, thanks for pointing it out, Councilman, I appreciate that we got rid of some signs. Do we want to have a sidewalk along Grubbs Road? Council President thinks the idea, I said, well, you know, we have a placeholder in the budget, needs to go and get some research done. It was before you tonight. You had a policy discussion. You made a policy statement about where you wanted, the direction they wanted to go.
But no decision was made on that. You know, talking about the sidewalk, there was no decision made. It was exchanging ideas, getting information for people, for you all to make that decision. So I don't feel like that's what's really happening.
So as to the car, I studied it, you know, it can be done. There'll be a little change in some way of doing some things as far as my behavior goes, as far as me having the car more at my disposal. And at times like that, whoever is the odd person out will have to get mileage. If there's an odd person out, we generally can make it work. So that's my response to her inquiry, and so that's, I offer that to you.
And now here it is before you, to see what you think about it.
So are we going to look into some sort of policy to
I think you have it.
make?
Pretty much have it. I think as an issue comes up, you may want to talk it through and see who's, that's my suggestion.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Stick with our committee policies. It's working, it's working.
Anything else on town administration? I appreciate you doing that, Toby.
Luke. You bet. Okay,
Is that for the 2019 budget year then that's gonna occur, or how are we doing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
The mechanics are gonna look at the 3 cars and figure out which one is the least good to keep, and then get rid of that one, but they have to look at it, the guys have to.
and that's what I reported to her on Friday.
Yeah.
The mechanics are gonna look at the,
Yeah, that was
I'm
exactly,
trying
they're
to
gonna
say
look
with
at
the
the
tongue in
cars.
cheek a little bit, the mechanics are gonna look.
I got you.
I said, yeah, that absolutely, they'll look at the vehicles and we'll be,
But
we
you wanna
have,
get rid of the good one.
Good, good
that
idea.
wouldn't be prudent.
Wouldn't be pretty.
But there's one out there that, one of those 2 out there, they're both close to passing on anyway. Health insurance under the 402 category, if we're going to the finance administration area, health insurance and dental insurance seem to stand out a bit. That's because one of our new employees got married, went from single coverage to spousal coverage, and then the rest of it's the 2.4% increase, so that's what that is. Otherwise, the finance area is pretty much status quo. If you look at the assignment of costs, that, when you look at the 110 category, that's the other potentially impactful number. That just depends on where We think time is gonna go for people, and that can fluctuate. The overall amount of money we spend on personnel costs can't exceed people's salaries and benefits. It's just whenever you go through every one of these budget categories, this section 110 is an assignment of costs to the best of our ability to estimate right now. Insurance is just gonna go up, we think, a little bit. That's pretty much it. For tax collection area, this is the person in our tax office with one part-timer, our tax administrator, or we have a new person in that area. So this really is what she does. There's some other costs in here. Just a quick point out, this does emanate from my manager's report on page 22. Professional services will actually go down next year unless our earned income tax goes up a lot. We negotiated a reduced rate with Keystone and extended their contract, so their rate of collection that they charged was in my manager's report. It'll go from 1.42% to 1.39%. And so that's what that, item 310, professional services, that's a big chunk of change, but it's much cheaper than running a tax office here, and much more effective under the new law. Any questions on that? 406, citizen information, that's our assistant to the town manager for communications home base, that's John Bajarski, and a lot of his work takes place here. Pretty much standard fare, actually a little bit of a reduction in cost. He's had some savings in our printing. He's done a great job of bidding out our printing, very competitive. He's getting quotes for all that all the time, and that's paid off. So we're not getting any increases in printing, just enough there to just take in case we do get a higher bid next year, because we get several items printed throughout the year, a calendar and criers and so forth. Nothing really overwhelming there. If you're ready to move on to 409, that is all of our costs for buildings and plant. Interesting word. That's, it's just a term for plant operations. If we have them here, and you're sitting in our plant. So we studied. I reported in my manager's report a couple of months ago. Tower Engineering did a fine job giving us a good 5-year plan for our highest priority items to be done next year, and then tapering off over the 5-year plan. So you'll see that we have work listed in here. The police station part of the system, and also on our boiler needs to be looped differently. We have a detailed, if anybody would like to see that detailed engineering report, of course we have it on file here.
Are we getting a whole new thing?
Actually, it's not necessary to get a whole new thing because our system has several components.
Okay.
Some of the components are still good, and we're.
Did you guys say thing? A whole new thing?
I know what she meant.
Right, okay, I was just making sure I was hearing you right.
Yeah, but a whole new.
The big thing.
Think of a doodle.
HVAC.
There's a lot of components, it's more component parts and using the boiler that we have more efficiently. That's the best way I can describe it in a couple words.
It's so expensive.
It is
I was
expensive.
hoping we were getting a whole new thing.
So, everything else pretty much is tracking. Pretty much similar costs for next year. That's the big item that changed this category's budget. Okay, we've gone through the next one to look at, I believe, is 426. We went through everything else in between. That's our recycling area. We are gonna have to buy.
Excuse me, Toby, I'm following along with interest in what you're saying, but what happens to 410?
We went over this last week.
Oh, okay, we did it last week.
We did everything in between.
I'm with you now, I got you.
So 426
Thought it was
is,
deja vu all over again. Okay?
There has been a run on the, just a brief comment, a run on the yard waste carts. I think some people didn't have them initially, saw the wisdom in having them, and our contract allows a second cart without any additional charge. That was, and that Waste Management's picking them up without any additional charge. So some other people have said, some people, I'd like a second cart.
So a person ends up with 4 carts.
This is this is not a lot of broken carts. This is just the inventory. And just a word to the wise, my successor may come to see you sometime in the middle of next year and say, hopefully $10,000. I'm gonna say right now, hopefully $10,000 is enough. That'll buy us about, let's see, the carts are about $50 a piece. What is that? I'm starting to get a little tired. 250 carts?
A particular individual could have a recycling cart, a regular cart.
And a yard.
Apparently two yard carts.
So some people are getting a second yard waste cart. They must have the room for the
You mean
storage.
yard waste, be the green one?
Big green guy, yeah.
Yeah.
2 green ones, okay.
How can you get that?
And Waste Management's picking both of them
How
up?
can you get one of those?
Ask.
2 of those?
You just asked.
I am asking.
So
Seriously?
will
Yeah,
Waste
yard waste.
Management pick
For
both of
you?
them up then?
Yeah,
Yeah,
under the
You
current
wanna
rate,
keep
yeah.
it?
Well, you add another one, then the rate starts to go up.
I keep.
Yeah.
If you had a second garbage cart, the rate goes up. A lot of people have upgraded also, folks, from a 65-gallon cart to a 95-gallon cart.
We can get a chipper, not a new cart.
And have you heard that, last comment on this, this is something that will, in Services Chair, Mr. Kirk, Waste Management is going to only pick up plastics numbered 1 and 2 and paper, cardboard, starting in March.
Glass
All
goes
their-
away.
All their customer glass, they said.
Seriously?
Why?
It's hit
Because
most other
nobody wants
places.
it.
Nobody
Nobody
can't-
will
they
take
can't
it.
get rid of it.
The
We need to
Chinese,
come
I
up
know
with
the
something to
Chinese
do
Put
with
that
it.
in the garbage.
and this was
in the
announced at the
trash.
COG
Yeah.
meeting.
We could build a community center out of glass bottles.
This was coming.
They could be earth ships.
That's
like-
right.
Yes.
I think that's time for an earthship.
Okay, all right, this is when
Then
we
you
start
make
getting
up the
really
design.
tired.
Class-
Come on, keep talking, Toby, just talk over
Last
them.
comment, on just as a real forewarning.
Point
just
of
so you know,
clarification, real quick.
Oh,
You're
no.
saying we no longer with
March
glass,
1st, you're gonna get a
Not till
notice. We're all gonna get a notice from
Well,
Waste
we're gonna
Management.
figure something
So
out of
what
that.
do you do with those things then, Toby?
Throw them away.
I'm just gonna, I'm gonna keep it at
Goes
recycling.
landfill.
No, we gotta figure
We
something out of
gotta do
that.
some artwork with them.
Maybe
Yes.
I'll
Okay.
pitch it.
further information will follow, that's fine.
Yep, the Chinese have said that they want only 99.5% pure recycling. And they know in America can't give them that. You're lucky if you get 90%. That's what our rate was hovering. When we first started this automated program, our rate, Republic was astounded how well our people did. Our people were producing only 7% contaminated waste in our recycling stream. That's amazing.
Incredible.
So is this going to be
And then DEP,
nationwide?
Waste Management wide.
Which is what?
It is, it's
Yeah.
going,
But I think it's gonna go
going.
nationwide, yeah.
It's going that
Yeah.
way, because
We have,
nobody will buy
I
it.
can't speak to the others, but I think it's coming, but I'm just telling you about our contractor, and the COG has this, the COG folks that are under the COG bid have Waste Management.
Sidewalks out of recycled glass bottles.
Well, glass is.
I'm not joking.
All we're gonna have is landfills filled with glass,
Right,
which will never disintegrate.
right. Till
Hopefully this
dinosaurs
is
come
a
back.
temporary problem, folks.
I don't know.
Okay, 451 is the next category under our list here for tonight.
Culture.
Culture. That's the Heritage Center,
Yep.
and costs are the only reason we budgeted a little less than last year's, about $1,200 less than last year's budget, but it's still about $4,000, almost $4,000. It is $4,000 higher than what we're projecting to spend this year, and the main reason for that is there's a cry for a sign, a tasteful sign along Ingomar Road that people can see. The little sign we have is just an identifier. This is the building you're driving to. We need a bigger sign up along Ingomar Road. It's gonna, for people, say, oh, that's what that building is right below there. And then there's money in the budget for that.
They need to start bringing in some revenue.
And I was just gonna say, only part of the cost of that sign is here, because the rest is the committee's trying to raise the rest of the money on their own. 452 is participant recreation program. That's our Summer Rec program. May it continue on, Steve. I don't have much to say about that. It's a nice little program. It really is. This is for the people, the kids who are tending to get kind of shuffled off. They get encouraged to play participative sports or just do crafts or whatever. This is a really nice low-level program for kids to just be kids. I encourage us to keep it up. I hope it lives on. 454 is our Parks and Recreation maintenance budget, primarily maintenance and sometimes new initiatives. I'll just mention that the Lorraine Rogers soccer field, that the middle part does need paved next year, so there's a crater forming where we store our leaf mulch every year, and when our guys have to dig up the scraps that are left over when in the leaf mulch, there is some
Asphalt.
there's plastic bags and some other paraphernalia that shouldn't be in leaf mulch.
There's all kind of stuff in
There's some weird stuff in there, and our guys have to scrape that up with a high lift, and it's been breaking up that asphalt, so we are gonna be paving that next year. Small requests from our athletic associations. We went huge with Vincentian Academy and partnering with them in the Kansas Athletic Association, and that project's done, and they're in the maintenance mode for this year, as is Vestal IFPAA. Okay, library is already submitted, and you voted to go ahead with that.
Excuse me, before we move on to.
Yes, sir.
One question. The field maintenance, just the normal, weekly maintenance of the field, the cutting of the grass and things, where is that?
There's a contract for that.
$20,000
We're paying about $20,000 a year, and that's included under category 370, Bill.
370, about 20,000 is in there?
Yep.
Okay, thank
Yeah, we've had very competitive bids from several companies each year for that,
Thank you.
all local.
Okay.
Okay, 457 is Community Day. Still running about the same, trying to shave it a little bit if we can, just like, again, wherever we could this year in the budget, we did some shaving. And we cut that a little bit from last year's budget, pretty close to what we spend this year. And remember, this year we had to do Community Day Part 2.
Yeah.
Okay, 491 and 492 and 94 really are just summaries. I don't think there's any reason to go over them if you don't mind. They just are what they are. They're refunds. We have no control over. We refund whatever we're supposed to, and it just lists our transfers. These are categories under the chart of accounts. So, and it does point out on page 86 what our fund balance is projecting to be. And we're following our policy, and as you know, anything that is left over above what our fund balance is by town council policy is supposed to be is the 2 months of cash on hand. Now, all that in excess goes to the capital reserve fund. And speaking of that, the capital budget is Fund 18, the specific budget for next year. Page starts on 89. And we have there's a lot of information here. There's, of course, a lot of projects we do. I will tell you that I think the sign
I
up
don't have a page 89. What? Yeah, 86?
under special funds.
Yep, it goes straight to 90.
I'll go from memory.
I have an 89.
Do you have an 89?
Yeah, I have
Me
an
too.
Yeah.
You looking under special funds?
Oh, look what I got.
I'm sorry.
I know how to do numbers.
I don't know how that would happen. That's,
Your whole
Did
got
you
missing.
count pages?
I can
In
count
numerical
you
order?
didn't tear it out for
It didn't
Okay.
get stuck, did it?
Here, Steve, lick it and see if it's.
Sounds like some sort of form of
86.
harassment to me.
there's-
I'll share it with you.
Okay, so on
Lick my book, Joey.
page 89, I think we can save the conversations I've had with PennDOT. They just were stonewalling John and his predecessor, trying to get an answer about how we could put a sign up. If the sign up at the Pine Township boundary would not be $20,000, it won't be as big. let's cut that in half, 10 grand ought to be plenty to get a solar-powered sign. We shine a light up on a very handsome stone or brick sign that says town, welcome town of McCandless. Check with PennDOT, that sign has to be out of the right of way. They will only permit 2 posted signs in their right of way. And I told them about the Pine Township sign, they said, oh, we're gonna have to talk to them.
It's already there. Jeez.
They did it, we can do it.
We have our placeholder that we will amend, I believe, from 28,000 to 45,000. Melinda, we're gonna add 28,000 there on page 89. Just to point out, the Arley grant, we don't budget ordinarily for grants, especially when we're asking for a 100% grant. We got an Arley grant, so we're now adding in what's happening to the Arley grant. You'll find that at the top of page 90. The Arley grant, again, it's the $135,000 grant we got for a lot of crosswalks, handicapped crosswalk improvements, and that is, again, 100% funded. The engineering's funded, and the actual construction work is funded. That's all in progress. We have a lot of projects under our PRP, pollutant reduction plan. You can see that in the middle paragraph on page 90. And our stormwater facility maintenance is under that as well. On page 90, we comment on significant work. The Devlin Park tennis courts are due to be resurfaced. They are cracking, and they do need redone. We can't hold off on them anymore.
How's the pickle field going?
It'll be repainted after these are redone, and it is pleasantly used. They're very happy with that. The Lorraine Rogers soccer fields, the potential site for that, the fitness court is shown in here. And we've been through this just recently. I don't think I have to say anything more about that. We know how that's working. We do need to get the fund drive going, Kim.
The people who give us that grant are supposed to help us with that.
They are. We need a local boost. We need a local push on that. They need a local person to help John.
I got a person. Yeah, I think so.
Deanna and John are the team up.
I will contact her.
He needs some help finding some people. The little committee maybe go out there and beat the bushes like we do for Community Day.
Yeah.
Get on the phone, whatever. Take some time for somebody. Where we say remaining other funds for tonight, the other funds that support Fund 18 are right. There's Fund 15, which is our assessment fund, and we have Fund 35, which is our highway aid fund. You can look at those. Those are the assessment fund is if someone approaches us, some neighborhood approaches us, we have some money available if they want to put a water district in, a sewer district, a street improvement or sidewalk district in. That fund has about $750,000, and it's just there as a fund to be able to help people out. That fund is a fund that gives it's a revolving fund. So if we loan out money, we get paid back by the residents, and that fund is self-perpetuating. In Fund 35 is the highway aid fund. That's our allocation from the state. It pays a nice segment of our paving program. So, I'm sorry, it was Fund 19 was our water and sewer fund. And then we have the summary of our capital program for the next 5 years. Maybe just if there are any questions about that, let me know, please. And we just try to, pace that out. We've got a lot of input from the department heads, of course. It was a collaborative effort. Lastly, revenues. We talked about revenues when we did our projections. So these are the more up-to-date details for this coming year. I made some comments in my manager's message at the beginning. I can make some more next week at the public hearing about some of our revenues are kind of tracking up well. Real estate is sort of just gradually increasing. A lot of the increases from the McCandless Crossing program that they've had over there. There's some more that are coming online that'll be adding to that. The 2 senior housing complexes on the western side of McKnight. Basically, I would again suggest if you have any questions about my region, I said what we said about trying to anticipate under our revenues, what we're showing. Unless you have a specific item, I can probably answer right now, if not.
Got it. Page 102, you have to change 4 police cars to 2.
What page?
102.
102. Yeah, we will do that. That'll automatically ripple through.
Will it?
Thank you,
Okay.
yeah, thank you for that. You know, Reach has the spreadsheet set up.
Okay.
Yeah, that should ripple. I will mark that, thank you.
Okay.
What number has to be changed?
102, 4 to 2, 4 police cars.
Page 102,
Police
it's,
Oh.
we're replacing 4 police,
Four, I
2
got you.
police vehicles instead of,
Roger that. Excel spreadsheets, the most miraculous invention of the 20th century.
saves a lot of time.
Wow. Those guys have to be major geniuses.
Anything else? Anybody have any comments about anything? Anything you don't like, love, want to change, not happy with?
Good job,
Yeah.
good job, very good job.
So next we'll have a public hearing on the budget. That'll be November 26th. And,
We'll have a scorecard for you, I'm sorry.
yeah, and then we'll vote to approve the budget on the 17th of December.
And right
Of
before
when?
that,
Kim?
17th of December.
17th of December is when we'll vote to approve the budget.
On the 10th, you will, in anticipation of the 10th, sometime that first week in December, you'll get a scorecard. All the changes that we talked about will be reflected in the scorecard in May. So when you adopt the budget, you'll know that those changes will be incorporated in the budget, and you'll get your final version.
17th of December, right?
Yeah,
Regular council.
you'll get a scorecard saying what the changes were that I believe we've recorded from everything we've talked about. And then 17th is your adoption of the budget.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Surely we have something else we can spend some more time on.
Oh, we can go back to this glass issue.
Yeah,
You wanna talk about that for a while? I'll
Your
talk to
assignment
you.
for this week is to figure out what we can do.
I've already
Tell us
figured
next
out,
week.
cause I've already seen recycled glass, I'm not serious, joking about the sidewalks, where they crush it and use it as the aggregate, absolutely, it's actually pretty nice looking.
I think it'd be sparkly.
Yep, I think
Sure.
something has to happen, cause I'm not happy about that at all. Better than fracking, I guess, but.
Okay.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Adjourn.